Yes, yes. Good evening, people. How's everyone going? How's everyone doing? It's flipping out. It's a late one tonight for me, but other things take priority at the moment. You know how it is. Bless up to everyone who's in the chat. I can see a couple of people already. Hope you all are doing well. Fiona, welcome. Yeah, first, you know how it is. I don't know what's going on with YouTube with the notifications. It's yeah, one of those things. But no, hope you are well and blessed. Skills man, same to you. Hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in on this late night. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna get it in today. Um yeah, I know it's a weekday, so appreciate everyone's got to go to work. So I'm not gonna hopefully take you up for too long of the night. I've not actually seen his video on the topic. I know he normally covers a lot of celebrity topics, so I'd assume he did, but I'm no way near too sure as to what he said. I mean, you let me know, Skittles man, whether the things that I say will be the things that he says. Um, I know he's obviously one of the manosphere olders, so he would have his red pill hat on, but I maybe not because some of the videos I've seen of late, he's actually kind of won't say switched up, but mellowed on some of the topics that I thought he'll be a little bit less inclined to say the things that I used to say. So I don't know whether things have changed. We all evolve, I suppose. But yeah, some of the things which I've heard him say, I don't follow his content too much, but some of the things I've heard him recently say, I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. Then I didn't expect that from him. So yeah, definitely let me know. But yeah, please, everyone, please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you are new. Um, it's been a good week for English football. So yeah, on we go, on we go. Anyway, but to the topic of the live stream. Now, the wall, it's one of the most commonly accepted theories or philosophies that always gets espoused from the red pill sector in regards to women. Now, for all those who don't know, I'll just quickly go over what the wall is. The wall is this age, this point in a woman's life in which, after she reaches that point, she's no longer at her, as they call, sexual market peak. It declines. Now, depending on who you listen to, this happens at the 25 for a woman, or some people say it's 30. I've heard someone say it goes old as 35. But essentially, it's all wrapped up in a woman's sexual marketplace value. And this also relates to a woman's ability to reproduce. Now, we all know when it comes to procreation, obviously, it gets a little bit more peak for a woman after she gets past the age of 30, even though I do know for a fact, and we all know this, a lot of women nowadays are having kids in their mid 30s, late 30s. Um, Obviously, some have problems, some don't have problems. So, technology nowadays, how everyone's living, a lot of things are just going well. Our lives are coming a less. We're pushing things, aren't we? Let's be honest. And so the red pill's always talking about, the wall. This women have to hit the wall. They can't, get the men that they want. They can't do this. It's over for them. You listen to a lot of these content creators, and you would think that after a woman hits 25, it's over. They reference the situation where they call it, I think it's leftover woman. I can't remember what the actual Mandarin term is, but it's called leftover women. How it translates into English, and how over there the culture is. I don't know if it's changing slightly because they're getting more westernized. Once they hit 30 and they're not married and having kids, they're pretty much considered done. Whereas over here in the Western world, life is just about starting. Let's just be honest. So they always use these mechanisms to try and get women into, because this is what it's all about. Let's be honest. This whole philosophy is all about one thing: getting women to acquiesce to their demands and their needs and how do they want it. They may say, oh, it's wrapped up in science, it's wrapped up in this. And some of it is, don't get me wrong. Some of it definitely is. But a lot of it is down to this one thing. Well, two things. The first one is in order to get the women to acquiesce to their demands. But the second one is even more sinister. And this is really what it comes down to, in my humble opinion. This is where it comes to the revenge theory. Now, this is where let me just put this out there for the men, because I know a lot of men listen to this channel. I have a lot more male subscribers based on my analytics. Obviously, I do know there's a women here, but big up to all. But for the men, this is where I'm at with things, and this is where my viewpoints not has evolved, but has kind of always been. I've just probably not said it as loud as I should be, so I'm going to continually say it as loud as I possibly can do. I'm all for men concentrating on what they need to do and not worrying about what other people are doing. Okay. when it comes to this war and these theories like the red pillars, what they actually are doing, this is called the revenge theory, in which what they're waiting for is these are guys who maybe they couldn't get the women that they wanted at a certain age, and what the strategy is a coping mechanism, and what these content creators are doing are saying, don't worry about it, men. These women after the age of 25, 30, they're gonna, hit a wall and you're gonna hit your sexual peak, and these women are gonna come kind of crawling back, or all these women are gonna just, pretty much be spilled out on the floor. I'm like, really? So what it is a lot of these guys take solace. They do. They do. They take solace in the fact of, you know what? When you get older, when they get older, the tide's gonna turn, and all of a sudden now you're gonna see this whole situation of basically a role reversal of situations where the guys were on top, and these same women who rejected them, they're gonna come back pretty much hand in heart, apologizing, kneeling, bowing down, all bow down to General Zod, all this kind of other stuff, and a lot of it stems down to rejection and hurt and all that kind of other good stuff. And I'm like, okay, okay, that's one way to go about it. But for me, I'm all about this. Listen, don't worry about what what anyone else is doing, just like you, because what I've realized with a lot of these guys who seem to wait for that moment, wait for the moment where someone else fails, is what they're not realizing is that they're getting older too. And this is what I'm like with you guys. Look, you have your life to live too. You have your experiences to go through. You have your empires to build. If you believe in building empires, some men actually don't believe in building their own empires. Basically, you have a ticking bomb as well. Because many people don't talk about the male war, in which, let's be honest, after a guy gets to over a certain age, he experiences things that we all don't like. You may have problems getting up, you may have problems getting wood, you may have problems finishing. There's a lot of problems that guys have after the age of 35, which people don't really want to talk about. Everyone talks about how, oh yeah, after a guy age 35, his sexual marketplace value, it storms up. But again, I have to quantify a lot of these things, or if you keep yourself in great shape, similar to the women. And this is what I'm going to talk about now, because again, these things actually don't exist in the real world. I'm telling you, these theories, these myths where these women are just going to be completely shut out from the marketplace and that's about it. Nah, bro. A lot of these things don't play out in reality. Now, Falcon Black did a video of this yesterday, in which she was pretty much saying some of the things that I wanted to say in this video. So big up to you, Falcon Black. He was saying this, look, don't worry. These women aren't going to fail because it just doesn't happen like this. It's not going to happen as you expect it to happen. The women, whether they're single, divorced, whatever it is, trust me, they will bounce back. I'm more worried about what in the God's earth you're doing. How are you coping? Because a lot of these men, I'm telling you, they ain't bouncing back. I see a lot of these guys who are on these channels and they're plus over 30, 40 years old, chatting that stuff. And I'm looking at their life and thinking, have you been waiting 40 plus years just to try and tell a woman, do you know what, you picked the wrong guy, or do you know what, you did this, while your whole life is just nothing, but you're just nothing but a loser? This is the thing where I really, really do want to like say to the guys, look. Some of these mechanisms are just there to cope for your own inadequacies and failures in life. I'm not saying that you have to take any woman that you don't want to take. I'm not saying you have to take a woman who has a child. Listen, if you don't have a child, I believe, yeah, you have a right to say, you know what, I do not want a woman. And likewise, if a woman doesn't have a child, you don't want to have a partner who has a child. I think that's fair. I have no problems with that. I'm not one of them people who say you must have. No. This is why I like what we have in this situation right now. Choice. I believe in choice. I believe both parties have the freedom of their choice. They can exercise their choice as long as, guess what? You accept the consequences of said choice. That's all it really is. But an article came across, I'm pretty sure you're all aware, regarding Thandiwe Newton. She's been through quite a flipping bit as of late. And I think it's just, I thought myself, you know what? A lot of these things that we talk about, it does not resonate in real life. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. There's a lot of things which I'm looking at, I'm seeing, I thought to myself, you know what? Why are you guys in your echo chambers? Why you guys are waiting for this, mythical, especially if you're black pill, why are you waiting for this mythical meteorite to hit planet Earth so that these women can acquiesce that you want? Look, while that's taking place, this is actually really taking place on planet Earth. People are doing what people have always been doing. And listen, again, I got absolutely no problem with what Thandiwe Newton is doing. It is what it is. But let me just read this. Let me just get this article up. So let me just share my screen for a second. All right, cool. So I really hate the Daily Mail's website. I'm telling you, boy. I'm telling you. So Thandiwe Newton, 49, packs on the PDA with musician. It's pronounced Lonr, spelled Lonr, but pronounced Lonr, 25. Now, this is the thing as well, because the first thing that always is told in the red pill is this: once a woman hits over a certain age, she can only get guys really above her age. Getting a guy who's 25, that's pretty much like, oh no, 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 no. I'm trying to think of any content creators who talk about this, where you have, because there's a trend. I don't know if you realize this, but there's a hell of a trend of older women being able to get younger men. I want to mean younger men, 25. 25, this ain't this ain't no relatively age. She's 40, she's 49. This is a 25-year-old, pretty much half her age. I don't know when the Thandiwe Newton's, whether she's 50 this year or not, but pretty much half her age. And this is after the fact of, guess what? She's heading to rehab, so she's clearly got issues, as we know. She's split from her husband, and she has two. No, sorry, she has kids as well. And check this out: her oldest is only 4 years younger than this guy who she's seeing right now. So let me just read a bit of this article, because we don't want you to go for all this kind of stuff. It's all gossipy stuff. But as you can see here, she was pictured for the first time on Saturday amid reports of a split from husband Earl Parker, and seemingly confirmed the end of their 23-year-old marriage with a very public display of affection with musician Lonr. 49-year-old Hollywood star, dressed in green print fleece, khaki cargo trousers, and bucket hat, gave credence to the whirling speculation that she had parted ways with her director husband by stopping for a passionate kiss and holding hands with the rapper 25 in Malibu. So as you can see here, you got the pictures, the kissing, etc. I mean, people say it's for the publicity. People say all this kind of other stuff. I don't disagree with it, to be fair, but even the optics in this, this is what kind of kills me the most. Because again, this is a guy, Lonr, who today, he has pretty much 626,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. This isn't your average guy. This is another thing as well when it comes down to, when I hear all these talk about, you can't get this type of guy, you can only get this type of guy, and those kind of stuff. Look, I'm not saying Thandiwe Newton's going to be every woman's situation. I'm not saying that. But I'm seeing more and more situations where I'm just like, look, you can believe a lot of this stuff that people talk about in the red pill. You can believe that woman's pretty much going to be over by the time she hits 35. But let's just face facts. That is actually not going to be the case. So when all these guys, and this is what I'm saying, look, my thing is this: worry about what you can control. Don't worry about what anyone else can't control. A lot of these women, you keep clowning them, they're going to bounce back just fine. Worry about what you're doing, because a lot of these guys who are chatting that mess, they're the ones who have the most amount of problems, because they're the ones doing the most amount of the talking. I mean, let's just be honest, guys. Anyone who's around the millennial age, they would understand this, I would say, this tag or this phrase, but MILF. And remember what a MILF is. That was made popular. Why? Because guys had a fetish, and they still do to this day, because it's still a very popular category in porn. It really is, in that industry, where it's mothers who still look good to the guys, and guess what? The guys still want to go there. And here's the thing about this: it's not as if this is some sort of, I'll say, new phenomenon. I mean, what you got? Madonna? What kind of guys can she get? I mean, Superhead. Look at Superhead. You remember who Superhead is? This is the woman who still, despite all that she's all about, despite all that she's done, despite all the videos out right there, she was still able to snag, I think it was like a 31-year-old millionaire. A lot of these things, a lot of these red pill talk, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's overblown, massively overblown, and it doesn't really play out in reality. Now, granted, when it comes to this situation here with Thandiwe Newton, I get it. It's not everyone's situation. It's a massive age gap. I do think when things get serious, or when she plans to be serious, this might just be a rebound thing. This might be a PR thing. I don't know. It could be all and the above. I'm not going to disagree with you here. But it's not as if we don't see a lot of these things happening. I mean, there's an actor, I can't remember who his name was. I wanted to get it up, who actually married a woman who's pretty much damn near his mother's age. He played out of Kick-Ass. If anyone can remember the name of that actor in Kick-Ass, if you look at his wife, I think his name's Aaron something. If you look at his wife, she is a very much older woman. These things I'm just looking at, I'm thinking, look, we all know that stepdads exist. We all know that things exist. So I'm just like, look, a lot of these concepts and these theories are designed to keep you in that coping strategy mechanism, which for me hinders a lot of guys from doing what they need to do. It doesn't help a lot of guys. Again, for the umpteenth time, I'm going to say it again. I'm not saying you have to accept a woman who has kids if you don't have kids. I'm not saying that you have to do anything that you don't want to do. I don't say you have to put with a contemporary woman. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, look, the reality is a lot of these things that you preach, a lot of things that is being taught out here, it's just not reality. And yeah, Fiona, you've put some names on here: Erica Badu, Lisa Bonet. Yep. Yeah. Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore. Here's what I say when it comes to guys, and this is just from my perspective. As long as a woman looks good to a man, why age? I won't say age is just a number. it really is probably just not as much of a hurdling block as a lot of people say it is. When it comes to maybe having children and whatnot, okay, cool. I get it. I get it. That's where it's going to be a bit of a sticking point. But a lot of these guys, when they look at women, we're not thinking the first thing, oh, I want a child with that woman. Let's just be honest. We're thinking about one thing and one thing only. As long as that woman looks good enough to that guy for him to do what he needs to do, that's really the first thing that people are thinking about. All this other stuff, and this is where the wall is really about. The wall is not necessarily about sexual marketplace value to a certain extent. It's about saying to women, you can't get this guy to have kids with, or the woman can't have those kind of kids. But most of these guys, I'm telling you, if they could just sleep with whoever they wanted to sleep with, a lot of them wouldn't even care. They wouldn't even care about this whole idea of this woman's over the age of childbearing age. Some guys, I'll be honest with you, would actually like that because that means they can do what they want to do and not worry about having kids, not worried about this woman getting pregnant. Let's just be honest. That's why you got women out here. I know it's an exception to the rule when I mention this, like J Lo, she's still able to get all these kind of guys. I guarantee Jessica Alba, if she's on the market, she wants to get these guys. Megan Good, another example. She's poster wall, according to these guys. Yet and still, I guarantee I've seen it. There are still guys out there who would still give up everything and more so to be women like this. All I'm going to say is this. When it comes to the wall, when it comes to this philosophy, when it comes to this rhetoric, if as a woman you keep yourself up to a certain extent, there are guys who are going to press you. We know this. We know this. There are guys out there who are going to press you. There are guys out there who's going to even wife some of these women up. And this is just a reality of life. So a lot of these guys, when they say these things, a lot of it's just cope, man. I'm telling you, a lot of it's just cope. And Skittles, man. Yeah, yeah. And this is where it comes down to. And again, this is where it gets exaggerated when it comes to this stuff. The expectations. When they get to a certain level, the expectation of they want a guy like this and they want a guy like that and all this kind of other stuff. And yeah, I hear it. I hear it. I hear it. And yeah, they can't get the guys that they want. But when it comes to, I suppose, this aspect of the game, just sleeping, just having sex and how the guy looks at things, a lot of these things are irrelevant, to be honest with you. A lot of these guys, like, as long as I can get what I need to get, all that other stuff about age, it is what it is. But yeah, I agree with you here. It's the expectations about who they should want to settle down with and etc. like that. But again, Skittles, man, I'm telling you, these women can still get these guys who are on the up and up. This is the next thing. I mean, again, Superhead of all people. I mean, Superhead. She was able to get a millionaire. And I'm just like, how the hell did that even happen? And it's just, it just makes me think that, look, a lot more guys out here are just more, I won't say, I want to call them simps, I won't call them blue pilled. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of these rhetoric, a lot of these ideology, a lot of these points, for me, they just don't turn into reality. A lot of these women, they will rebound, they will bounce back. And yes, they probably will have to settle in terms of they may not be able to get the 101 things that they wanted out of a man. They may have to settle for 50. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. They may not be able to get their 50 things they want out of the man. They'll be able to only get 30 out of the 50. Whereas most guys, and this is the kicker, if most guys had the standards that women have, I'm telling you, most women would actually be in trouble. I'm not gonna lie to you. If men had the standards that women had, most women would be in trouble. But based on how we're wired, based on how we are, a lot of guys don't really have that much amount of standards. I'm telling you, it's just a case of three or four things. That's about it. And if the woman hits about one of those things, two of those things, if you're lucky, a lot of guys will actually put up with that kind of stuff. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. It just is what it is. So a lot of these things I hear, a lot of these things I see, I just listen. You can talk about this war. You can talk about how women are gonna, fall flat on their face by the time they hit 35. Look, you wait for that moment to happen. You wait for that moment when that woman who let you down, who rejected you all your life, she hits the age of 35, 40, and then you think you're in your sexual pump and she coming back to you and you can say, oh no, I'm going to want you. You can wait for all that if you want to. I'm on about, look, what are you guys doing in the meantime? Because at the end of the day, a lot of these women, I'm going to say this as well, even if they do hit the wall, even if they can't get the man that they don't want to get, a lot of them still aren't going to get you. Still, a lot of them still aren't going to want you. This is another thing, a part of this war. And this is the coping mechanisms and the strategies that I've heard. What it is a lot of these guys have this fantasy, in my opinion, in which the same women are going to come back to him and say, oh, now I want you. Some of these women would rather die than be with some of these guys who they rejected. They would rather die alone. They'd rather be alone. They'd rather be with anyone other than you. But again, this is these strategies that keeps these guys in this inevitable red pill rage against women and all this kind of other stuff. And again, rejection is a tough thing for anyone. Do not get me wrong. I've been rejected. It ain't nice. It's tough. It is very, very tough. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that you should feel a certain way, because at the end of the day, I believe you can feel how you want to feel. But all I'm saying, my opinion, my viewpoint, and how I'm gonna tackle things is just kill the game at the end of the day. If you're gonna base your life on waiting on that person who rejected you 15, 20 years ago to come back to basically beg, apologize, say how everything that she did was wrong. I don't know, man. For me, that's when I see and hear guys like that, I think it's just loser talk. A lot of it is just loser talk. And I'm just like, look, you can live your life how you want to live it. But a lot of these guys who I see, I'm thinking to myself, do I want to be that age and saying that kind of rhetoric and messing around and saying, I don't want to be that. A lot of these guys I see who are content creators who people love, 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 love. I say to myself one thing: if I get to the age that they get to, would I want to trade my life for them? That's what I always look for when it comes to these content creators or people in general. People may disagree, people may like the message, all that kind of other stuff. Fine, but my stance on this is this: if I get to the age that some of these people are at, and let's just say have the accomplishments that they have, my question to myself is, well, would I want to trade my life for theirs, or would I not want to trade their lives? And a lot of them, I would not in any situation want to trade their life for theirs. And I think it's just a case where, for me, again, you guys can do what you want to do. People can do what they want to do. I would say this: there's a better life to live. There's a better way to live. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about what someone else's do. I got to move about my own business. A lot of this war stuff is a lot of it's projection. I've seen there's so many people down there who's just managed to get who they managed to get, and let's be honest, a lot of them are still in a better situation than most of these guys are. So, antisocial, lady A. Okay, as the guy got money, does he want to marry her? Now, I'm honest with you. I have no idea about how much money he's got, but he's not no nobody. He's not no nobody. He's a rapper. Of course, that sounds obvious, but he's not somebody. He's on the up and up. Let's just say that. Does he want to marry her? I have absolutely zero clue. Zero clue. But I'm going to say this about marriage, and this is the most funniest thing about the red pill, which I'm kind of interested in regards to your rhetoric here, Lady A. Most of these guys don't care about marriage. Most of these red pill guys don't care about marriage. I don't care what they say. They don't care about marriage. Marriage has never been a thing that's been high on the red pill agenda. Matter of fact, most of them aren't going to get married. Most of them don't want to get married. Now, they'll say it's down to the laws, child support. Okay, fair enough. But the red pill never, ever in their life wanted to get married like that. That whole ideology of marriage, that was brought in by one content creator who pushed that agenda. But I'm telling you, most of these guys, that marriage piece, BS, 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 BS. And the next thing you have to ask yourself is this: does she want to get married again? She's got married, she's got kids, she's doing what she needs to do. Does she want to get married? I've got zero clue. It's a case where she's got kids, she's had marriage, she's had the ups and downs. She could be just having fun with a 25-year-old guy, and that's just how it is. But the point that I'm trying to say is this: at least you can get a 25-year-old, even if she's not peak Thandiwe Newton, because no, she's not peak Thandiwe Newton. She's gotten older, as we all do. We all hit that age where we don't look as spry as we used to do. But hey, she's able to get a 25-year-old guy. And this is the thing: you listen to these red pill content creators. Oh, you can't get anyone. You're gonna feel flat in your face. You're gonna da 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 da. I'm always like this. Okay, you can wait for that moment. You can do for that. But a lot of these women, I'm telling you, whatever you think of them, they're gonna land on their feet somewhere. My question to you guys is, what the hell are you doing? Because a lot of guys out here are a lot more. I look for the stats and I couldn't find the separation between gender or not, but a lot more men are lonely out here. A lot more men are lonely. This is the funniest thing about this whole conversation. This whole conversation for me springs one thing in mind. It's actually the men. It's actually the men who are more pressed about loneliness than the women. It's actually the men who seem to be more, what's the word, wanting commitment, which sounds more like a woman thing. For me, it's so crazy. It's like, why are the men acting like bitches nowadays? Is it just me? But I'm not saying it's a feminine thing to want commitment. But a lot of these men are completely sounding like how women would sound like. Oh, we want marriage. Oh, we want this. Oh, we want that. Oh, we want this. It's normally the woman who chases the guy to get commitment from him, not the other way around. Yet these guys, bro, there's so many things about these content. I'm telling you, it's creating a wall of, I call them male feminists. Male femininity, where they're coping, where they're getting caped for, where nothing's their fault, where everything's the fault of the other sex. And I'm like, listen, I'm not about that. I'm about, again, accountability, responsibility. I'm just living your life. Worry about what you can control. Don't worry about what someone else can control. So I'm just like, a lot of this talk, a lot of these things, I'm telling you, what we're actually creating is men who actually are the ones who are more like women, stereotypically. Can't handle responsibility, can't handle accountability, and everything else is, oh my God, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. Whatever, 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 whatever. But see, now this is funny. This is funny. This is funny because here's the thing: I don't disagree with you here, but tell the guys that, Lady A. This is the thing: Tell the guys that the whole purpose of the manosphere was that these guys couldn't really get what they wanted. Or let me rephrase that. They couldn't get sex from the women they wanted to get sex from. So they say that anyone can get laid. BS. BS, BS, BS. These guys are complaining specifically because they couldn't get no punani. That's what they're complaining about. This whole idea of the red pill is twofold. You have the guys who complain about the treatment, okay? But a lot of the guys here, a lot of them are complaining because they can't get what they want, which is to have sex from the women that they want. That was actually one of the main complaints about a lot of these guys. That's what it really is. And of course, it goes into the black pill, which flipping out is a whole new reason. So I don't know. All that knows about anyone can get laid. If guys could get laid by what they want, Lady A, they would not be complaining. They won't be complaining online. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. You won't be seeing this complaints about we want women who are wonderful, virtuous women with wives. You won't be hearing that. You would not be hearing that. I know it for a fact. One of the main components of this stuff is men complaining that they couldn't get what they wanted to get, which is sex. If a guy could get sex and have no commitment till he's 60 years old, believe it or not, he will be 60 years old still doing the same thing. I guarantee it. There'll be a small percentage, don't get me wrong, who would settle down, but even still, they'll be cheating. Even still, they'll be cheating. So a lot of these things, I'm telling you, man, these mechanisms are just bro. I've a lot of these things I hear, I listen to it and I thought, okay, fair enough then. Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough then. Fair enough. But yeah, because when I listen to a lot of this crap that the guys be saying, I'm telling you, there's just be lying. They be motherfucking lying. I know that for a fact. I listen to them, and even now, this is where I'm at with things. I don't. When people say what they say, I can't be asked to debate or argue with them. I'm gonna let them say what they need to say, and then that's it. Because at the end of the day, when you look in real life, when I see you in reality, a lot of things don't play out how things are said online, and this is why I kind of really don't. I won't say I ignore a lot of the things that content creators be saying, men or women, but yeah, I take it with a pinch of salt. I'm like this. What resonates in your life? What has been in your life? What do you see out there in the real world? And a lot of these things don't kind of add up. I know this is a kind of a bizarre example, but let's be honest. They use examples from the media all the time to justify their own BS. But when I saw this again, this isn't the only one. This is not the only one who does this. It's not just Thandiwe Newton. Again, Ashton Kutcher with Demi Moore. You had Erica Badu, Lisa Bonet, Megan Good. I guarantee Megan Good, she can get definitely a guy who's younger than her easily. Not only commit to marry her, to propose. The question is whether she wants it or not. That's always sometimes a thing that we don't really take into account. Do they want that guy? Do they want to marry that guy? Because at the end of the day, women are initiating the divorces. So there it is. But yeah, so this wall, the wall, for me, it's one of those things where it exists in a sense of fertility. That is not to be questioned. I'm not going to question the whole war in regards to childbearing age. But when it comes to sexual marketplace value, this one's a bit of a tricky one. Again, you have the category called MILF, where a lot of guys target older women. You have a lot of guys who target this. This is where I say we're guys, funny enough, when it comes to us, we like a lot of different body sizes attractive, body types attractive, ethnicities and races attractive. Guys seem to be built or more wired to accept a hell of a lot more than women do, vice versa. Just because you could argue the lay of the land is men are to dominate dominion over the world, and that means that guess what? They're going to spread their seed like nobody's business. We know this. So a lot of these things about the wall, I'm going to say this: a lot of guys, as long as you look good enough, that's why when it comes to this SMV value, I don't put an age on it. I already put a, let's just say, how you've managed to keep yourself, how you've managed to mature yourself. I see a lot of women out here who are in their 30s, past their 30s, who still look good enough. I know a lot of guys press them. I know they get pressed by a lot of guys. You only have to look on Instagram for a lot of these women who look younger than they do. And I'm like, they have no problems getting the guys that they want to. Now, do they want to get married to these guys? That's another question. But I guarantee they have no problems getting these guys to marry them. It's just a case of, do they want to get married to these guys? That's the question. It just is what it is. Now, some will inevitably settle when they want to do that, is what it is. But that works for both sexes. So when I see this war myth, all I'm going to say to a lot of guys who's listening and people listening is, look, you can spend your life worrying about this kind of stuff and waiting for this woman who rejects you, or these women who reject you all these years, to say, oh, you know what? By the time she hits 35, she's going to hit the wall, she's going to do this, and she's going to come back crawling. Or just worry about your own life, man. Just worry about your own business, because the women will be fine. One thing about society at the moment is a lot of these women will be fine. And I want to say fine, better than you. Let's just rephrase, better than you. Falcon did a video yesterday where he was like, look, even his experience, he was telling him that he actually had a stepfather in his life. So it's not as if these things aren't a possibility. We do know stepfathers exist since the way not when. We know stepfathers exist even till today. So all I'm going to say to the guys, look, you want to talk about the war, you want to talk about all these women, you want to do this kind of stuff, fine, 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 fine. But for me, I'm all about, look, worry about what you can control, worry about what not you can control. Because I'm telling you, a lot of these women out here who you think are losing, they're not losing. They really aren't losing. And you think because they're not got married, they're not married. These women care. This is another thing. It's another thing. A lot of people nowadays are using marriage as a stick to say this is how women are losing. You ever realize that some of these women don't want to get married? This is another thing that kills me. I've heard a lot of women say they don't want to get married for reasons which a lot of guys say they don't want to get married. They don't want to get married. They don't want to get tied down to this. They don't want this kind of stuff. So these measure sticks that a lot of people use, I'm sorry, a lot of women nowadays, younger ones, I remember speaking to, I was in college, and this one was like this, oh, I don't want to get married. I was like, oh, fair enough then. And a few women are like that. They just don't want to get married. A lot of women actually don't want to go down their stereotypical traditional route that people think that they want to go down. So a lot of these things that people hit these women with, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not all, but a rising lot of women, they don't want to go down that route at all. Some of them don't want marriage, they want kids. We all know how that goes. But I'm telling you, all this marriage piece, I don't know. Some of these things that are yardsticks, a lot of them it's not the same at all. It ain't the same at all. So a lot of things have changed. A lot of things are going around. So before I continue, let me just say what's up to the chat. I see a few people in there. But hey, pick up Lady A. Thanks for stopping by. I not said hello to you. So I apologize for the rudeness. But no, big ups to yourself. Tash, welcome to the stream. Hope you are doing well. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you are new. But yeah, look, Lady A, listen. This is it. This is it. And this is what I say about choices. This is why I don't argue about things, and which is why I'll say don't waste your energy on certain things. If they want to do that, then let them do that. That's all. That's where I'm at with things. And this is where a lot of guys, for me, you show your hand a little bit about how you get too unnerved. If they want to be that, then let them be that. Just don't let it be on your accord. This is why when it comes to responsibility, I'm like, look, guys who protect themselves at all costs don't have to worry about certain these things because that's not going to be them. I'm saying, why waste your energy on people who you shouldn't even waste any energy on? I'm sorry. But my opinion, if that's the case, they want to be that, then fine, let them be that. I know people who are like that. That's just not going to be my life, or I'm not going to be associated with that. Simples. And that's how I should live it. I'm not going to argue about this kind of crap. If they want to be that way and get their struggle on council tax, let them do it. Let them. It's their choice. It's their life. It's their body. Let them. I ain't got time to be arguing, fussing about that kind of mess. I just let them. That's why now, again, I've evolved my strategy. All this crap about back and forth about this kind of stuff. Why? Why do I need to? It's a choice. when men having all these kids with all these different women, I don't care about that guy. It's a choice that he made. He did make that. Nick Cannon, people like this. Yes, he did. He decided to go unprotected in that woman, and then whatever happens after that is his fault. His fault. So I don't hear him or Future talk about anything like that at all. It's his fault. Likewise, with the women who get involved with these guys after the third, fourth, fifth kid, they know what it is. They know what time it is. Look, I don't know why people get upset about people's choices. Look, it's their choice. Let them live in their choice. I don't really care at this stage. Honest to God, nowadays I'm like, a lot of guys are just, I don't know, getting themselves in a mess, an absolute mess, talking about this kind of stuff. I'm like, look, it's your choice. You did it. End of story. That's all I'm going to say to it. So a lot of these things I don't care about. A lot of these things I don't need to get arguing about. A lot of these things I don't even get hit by it. And lady, look, this is another thing as well. If someone does that, who cares? See, this is the thing where I'm going to say this. This is where I need to talk to the men about, and this is how you need to act as a man. One of the things you should never do is let anyone know how emotional or basically knock you off your square. So a lot of these things are happening. It's creating, for me, this is where a lot of men are falling into the trap. Man, who cares? So what? So what? At the end of the day, I'm like this. That's not me. That's not me. I know that's not me. So when a lot of these women say these things, let them say it. It's not me. Now, if you want to have that debate, if you want to have that fight, by all means, you have a channel, you have a right. Go big ups to yourself. If you want to fight that fight about these women who a lot of these women don't care, they won't take responsibility. That's you. Cool. I have no problem. For me, I'm not doing that. That's not my fight. That's not my fight to be going here correcting everyone's mistake or saying this. Let's be honest, lady. And you've said this. They know that they made. They know what they're doing. They know what they've done. They know what they've done. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. So that's why I'm just like, look, my thing is this. I really can't be arsed with it. I'm bothered about me and worried about how I can basically kill life. Because one of the things which I've realized a lot of times is people talk about average this and average that. But the average now is actually very, very low. It's a low bar to set. If you're above average in today's society, I'm sorry, it ain't that much of a big deal, in my humble opinion. In my humble opinion, people are getting fatter, people are getting lazier. So the average now, people talk about, everyone's average. Yeah, because people are lazy. People are in this sort of victim blaming trap. A lot of people are in a trap where, truth be told, if you're gonna be honest with yourself, you can break average very easily. Very easy. This is why I'm like this with the guys. Look, don't worry about what you can't control. Worry about what you can control. Protect yourself at all times, and then just be above average, which nowadays is not that difficult. But again, with these type of shows which say that, oh, it's all the woman's fault, you create a situation where these guys are trapped in an infinite loop of victimization. And a lot of them sound like women. When I hear these guys, they sound like women. I'm telling you, they sound like women. But that's why I'm just like, I can't be asked with that BS. If you want to have that fight with them, if you want to do this kind of other stuff, that's on you. Me, I can't be asked with that. Reality says a completely different thing. Listen, if they're gonna be fine, whatever. I need to worry about if I'm gonna be fine, because that's all I really that's not all I care about, but that's a primary that's a primary sort of I can only control me. Let's just say that. I can only control me. Um it's late tonight, so I don't want to stay up too late. But I'm gonna put the link in the chat to see if you want to come up and say what you want to say your piece. But yeah, again, look, when I see a lot of women nowadays who seem to be able to get these younger guys, and I'm just saying a lot of these things which a lot of people are spouting, a lot of people are extolling. A lot of times, all it is to keep you in a complete victim mindset, the victimhood, which ain't good. And especially for guys, this is something for guys that you need to listen to. This is not for you, man. Look, I think as a man, there's a certain level of um, drive that you should have. I think it's just a case where, look, at the end of the day, there's only so much victim blaming that you as a man should do before it sounds like you sound less masculine. You just sound less masculine. I watched a stream where this guy was talking about how God difficult it was, and how the men that he's talking to, and how they just it just looks so sad. And if I don't know if you've ever seen this, but a guy who's plus 40 years old who looks like his life is deserted him. It's one of those ones where it's a very sad sight to see. I saw a guy, he was like, it must have been over 40 years old, and he's just like, it's horrible when he's how he spoke, the lack of energy, the lack of drive. It just sounded it just sounded mad. And I'm like, bro. I don't know. Not for me. Not for me. Tash, good evening. I'll say good
Good
night.
evening. What is actually happening? I'm confused.
Confused about what?
YouTube seems to be set on night tonight. I've just come from a similar kind of channel that is kind of talking about the same thing. So what is it
Oh,
exactly that's
oh,
happening? Yeah,
fair enough.
Clubhouse is a bit crazy as well.
Okay,
What
okay.
is going on?
All right, let me clue you in then. So, obviously Thandiwe Newton, she's going through divorce,
Right,
and it looks as if she's, I say, rebounded
right.
with this rapper, this guy's named Lonr. I don't know who he is, by the way. Just as an FYI, I've not heard his. I think I've listened to some of his music ish, but I'm not really familiar with him. But yeah, so she's rebounded with rapper Lonr, um,
Okay.
and I think she came out official saying, oh, basically, yeah, PDA paparazzi took a picture of him. But
Mm,
for me, it was just kind of one of those things where I've seen a lot more and more of older women with younger men. It's not something new. And I'm just like,
right.
a lot of guys are using this idea of, let's be honest, if she was on Kevin Samuel's show, she'll be divorced.
Oh,
She's
should be done. Yeah.
Should be done.
Yeah.
Absolutely done. Absolutely
Yeah.
done. And I'm like, well, reality is not really the case. Done is a very, very the way how he makes
Mm.
it done is not done.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
But
Now, I'm not
I
saying that
mean,
she's gonna get the pick of the litter, but she ain't done. You know what I mean? So I'm like, just man, you need to stop. Some of these contents, I'm like, look, it only exists in these echo chambers. So
oh, so they've all kind of been going for her a little bit today, the Thandiwe Newton
have
thing.
they? I don't know what they've been saying. I've not listened to anything that they've said. So I don't know if they said
Right,
that.
right, right.
So I don't know what.
Yeah, I went on to one where they were talking about older women, and it was on Clubhouse, and it went onto YouTube as well. It was
Okay,
talking about
okay.
this older woman thing, and her value, and how she's valued, and yeah, I kind of thought, well, I don't know if Kim is. Anyway, I'm not trying to discredit or disrespect Kevin Samuels, but I don't think he's got the credentials really to speak on marriage and who's high value and low value and what have you. But it is kind of out of control. I think, especially being on the Clubhouse space, I've noticed there's a real like sensitive kind of there's a lot of these men that are, well, women as well, that are quite sensitive to this age and who's average and who's
And
below average. Like, this is like beyond anything I've ever seen. I'm like, what are you doing? And people get really, the responses, everybody gets really, really agitated and aggressive, and it's like I don't know. It's for
do you know
me.
what?
Go on, go on. Tell
Here's
you
what I
talk to
think,
me.
and this is where I get confused. But people live vicariously through a lot of these stars, don't they? So, for example, let me use an example. When Sierra went with Russell, a lot of women were cheering
Oh yeah,
because
that
they,
one's really heavily talked about. Yeah, go
yeah,
on.
it's like a lot of women, even men actually, because men get upset, and this is why I'm like, why, guys, why are you getting upset for? But a lot of these guys and girls, they're getting upset because they're living vicariously through it. So if they see a win for a woman,
Mm,
oh my gosh, or if they see a win for a man, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But you're right, that's how I perceive it to be. A lot of them are living vicariously through it, and they see it as almost you're setting a precedent for the rest of us by doing this. This is another thing.
yeah.
That's why guys were getting on Russell Wilson's case
Oh,
because
they give him such a hard time.
yeah,
I'm
because
so shocked. But
basically
Future, he
you're
doesn't
even
get even a minute of it. He doesn't get a second of any
as
kind of harsh critic. It's nobody's ever going for Future, but Russ, my goodness, he gets a battering on a daily basis. I'm thinking, this man is such a respectful, like he the way he comes across. I mean, you can't even compare the two individuals, but these men just batter him. It's so sad to listen to be honest with you, and so disappointing for where we are as a community. You would think, I mean,
well, this is the thing, and this is why and these are meant to be guys who are respectable, but the guys would rather be Future than Russell Wilson.
mm, yeah,
Now, again, I'm not saying you have to be either, but of the two, they'd rather be Future than Russell. That's what
yeah,
they'd rather be the guy impregnating all the women as
yeah.
opposed to a guy who doesn't do that. Who took basically a woman who was a mother. Single.
Mm,
That's
mm,
what it is.
Even they were talking about Laurie Harvey,
Yeah,
her being with Future and then going with the actor, I can't remember his name.
Michael B.
I'm
Jordan.
just saying, like, well, but I'm thinking to myself, well, she didn't stick around with him. She saw they all were like Future pushed her away. I'm like, yeah, but look at who she's with now. I'm like, I don't know. It's like these, and don't get me wrong, the women are also, there's a lot of, oh my gosh, the diversity there are very interesting. But oh my goodness, the people that they're looking up to, that men are looking up to, it's really, really disappointing. Really disappointing. But I mean, obviously, I've got my little issue with Thandiwe Newton, but when it comes to this, I can't really. I don't think anyone should be judging her at this stage.
I mean, listen, I'll say this. I think it's more of a rebound thing. I don't think it's anything serious. So yeah, I'm expecting marriage to be on the card. No, I think it's just rebounding. I don't know if it's PR. I don't know. But it is
Yeah,
what it is. Again, I'm not I'm not pressed about it. I'm just like a lot of these red pill they'll miss over this kind of stuff because it doesn't fall into their narrative. That's all. So I'm like, look, a lot of things you just have to just open your eyes to see. It's not as clear cut as people say it is. That's kind of where it is. And yeah,
right.
it's for me. I'm just like guys in particular because mostly guys are on my channel. Even though right now it's mostly women. So big ups to all women in the chat and in the on the panel. But yeah, certain things you shouldn't be worrying about. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Well,
um,
Diego's making a point that she's not a regular woman. I would agree with that. I suppose, she is a celebrity. It's funny that he says that, because when we were on the Discord, many were seeing her as just an average. Who is she at the end of the day? But the reality is she is a celebrity and she probably can't be compared. Diego, jump on if you can,
but the
please.
thing is, though, and this is what I say to Diego, and he's right though. But the reason why celebrities are used is because we can Google them. We know what their personal life's about. We don't know the next woman on the road personal life unless it goes in the news. So I hear what you're saying, where it says she's not a regular woman and okay, shouldn't be compared. But are we saying that this doesn't happen in reality? Like normal older women don't get some of these. I saw these weird cases online. Some of them are because it's to do with passport identity. A foreigner. But the only reason why celebrities are used is just because we can Google them easily. We can't really Google, next woman down the road. You can't Google
Yeah,
that. You know what I
that's true. That's true.
mean?
That's true. Because
So
their life
this
is on
happens a
Front
lot, and,
Street.
and,
That's
and keep in
right.
mind now, one of the popular categories in the fetish world is MILF. We all know what a MILF is, don't we?
Yeah. They've even got Gilf. Let's not forget
Oh
that one as
gosh.
well.
So they're not celebrities, they're next woman. And then I reference Superhead. I know she's not. She's a porn's ex. I want to call it a porn
Oh
star.
my gosh, Superhead. Is
That's
that
a
the one
lie.
that wrote all the stories about all the
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like
thing? Yeah, I remember her. She's something else.
so. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm not saying it's the norm. I'll agree. It's not the norm. I 100% agree with you. But
right.
it's it's um it's not really as taboo now. A lot of things are getting a lot more muddled up. So a lot of these theories are just theories, and now I'm like, oh,
Oh. But I
so
think there are a lot of Sandys out there. There are. And I wouldn't say that they have to even put their business out on Front Street, even the celebrities.
if a woman can keep herself looking decent, looking good, past the age of when the
Yeah,
war
of
hits,
course.
she'll get pressed. The issue is, does the woman want to be with that guy if there's a massive age difference? Because this is another thing. Certain guys, when it comes to it, they don't want to be with certain younger women because, like, nah, there's too much of a generational gap. I can't relate.
Yeah.
So,
Many would look into Thandiwe rather than Keisha from Instagram, who's 26
uh,
and is, yeah, a
so,
big
so
count on her. So yeah, many would be more up the Thandiwe Newton alley than that anyway. I mean,
yeah, skill man. I'm exactly with you on that. Listen, I was I was gonna bring this up to the guys. I might bring it up again.
mhm,
Funny enough, talking about traditionalism and how a lot of men want traditionalism and all that kind of other stuff. And I was
mm,
gonna pose this question
yeah.
to the men who talk about this. Which man would you rather be? Would you rather be Russell Wilson in his relationship, Future in
Mm,
his situation, or Will Smith in his situation?
question. Good question. Phew, Will Smith's an interesting one. I've started to actually really have a big issue with that little
And you know what? I'm going to say this: I'd rather be Russell Wilson than any of those other
of
situations.
100%. Big up to yourself
Because
on that.
here's the thing: you can say what you say about Russell. Sierra's defending Russell at all costs. I've never seen Sierra, I say betray or throw Russell under the bus. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you say, if she doesn't like him, she doesn't do this. I've never seen every single time men have come at Russell, Sierra's always bounced back saying, no, 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 no.
Mm,
I do like this guy. I love this man, etc., etc. I've never seen that. Obviously, no situation with Will Smith and Jada, but no situation, Future in his situation. It's like no.
mm.
So,
Yeah, Sierra's a very classy individual. She's very smooth in the way that she operates.
yeah, I
You know, I
mean,
respect her.
absolutely.
And I think she doesn't have the issues that Jada has. And I think she went into it, she went into the situation with Future in a way that I think many women go into situations with men. And unfortunately, he conducted himself in a certain way. And I think she dealt with it really well. And then she found Russ, and I think he's great. You know, and I think we should put him up on a pedestal as to how men should be treating women and behaving. I think it's
I
really
mean,
sad to see so many men putting him down.
well, here's the thing. I understand why, to a certain extent. It's just a constant I don't get. At the end of the day, he made his choice, and this is what I keep saying about this whole. I don't get engaged nowadays with this stuff. It's a choice. If you made that choice, that
Right.
happened. Then listen. I don't care. You made that choice. You have to live with the consequences, good, bad, or indifferent. We all do.
Yeah.
So I can't be living my life. And again, that's what I'm saying. You have these guys who are like 40, 50 years old talking about this stuff. And I'm like, well, look at your life. I'm sorry. I wouldn't trade my life even with yours. And these guys act like they're the divine authority on these things. So talking
I
about
don't.
it,
The thing is, I don't know why Kevin Samuels thinks he's got an authority. I think more for these men that entertain the likes of Kevin Samuels, because really, I mean, they're paying for his life, to be honest with you, which is
yeah,
so
yeah.
sad and quite embarrassing. And that goes for Cynthia G as well, those that follow her as well.
Oh yeah,
And I,
she's so much more hateful. So much more hateful. I'd flip a neck. If I know, it's honest to God, her rhetoric and there's even worse out there. I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean, I think they're destroying the relationship between black men and black women. And I think people need to be very, very careful, who they support out here. They should support, healthy, quality relationships and with between men and women. I get the whole submissive thing to a certain extent, but then I do think that we've got a long way to go before women can really, is it attainable for black men to have that kind of option of traditional values and submissive women? And are we in that time? Is society available to that? These are questions we need to ask.
Yeah, I've got my viewpoints on that. Definitely.
We should do a show on that. I think that would be an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff out there. I was going to say the Tim Westwood stuff.
Yeah,
I
I've
know.
kind of got a backlog on that, Tash. Actually, you're right. And I want to tackle. I was thinking about tomorrow. I wanted to tackle the sad incident that took place in Southeast London. Where
okay. Yeah.
there's a guy apparently he killed the mother, the grandmother.
That's right. Yeah.
I wanted to tackle that. I wanted to talk about that because that's something that's for me a little bit more important. But yeah, there's a backlog. I've definitely got something to. So I wanted to kind of tackle that as well.
I didn't think you would touch that. That's really good. So I'm pleased to hear that.
No, I think I need to because it's just a wider thing where, it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
It raises so many things which we need to address as a community, which is awful. So,
it was a shocking one. I think they've done a few. I'll send you a few of the Clubhouse. I think they've recorded a few. I was listening into one yesterday.
Okay.
It was quite interesting. But and they've done one today. But yeah, sorry, I don't want to take you away from this show. Sorry. Let me let Fiona. Where's Fiona?
Yeah, no worries. I think Fiona's back now anyway. So
hi, good night, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, good night, Tash. I just wanted to chime in. I think again, and you're going to say that I'm going on the same kind of rhetoric. But I think again that this is another kind of dig. It started off initially as a dig at black women, really, because I think the only thing that most of us have to go by is looking or aging really well past a certain age. And a lot of people, it's their beliefs that the 18 to 35 thing is more related to other races of women than us. I don't know, looking at social media and just people around me in general, I would kind of agree to that. So for me, it's the aim to kind of remove any kind of positive around, in particular, black women, because I think that's where most of the rhetoric is directed to. And then it's slowly sort of spun out into other women. So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, the thing is, because Thandiwe Newton, I mean, I won't consider her black. Now, maybe it's a case of from the American side, they would say it's a dig at black women or that side. But to be honest with you, I never saw it necessarily as an attack on black women that way. I didn't see it that way. So I have different views on that. So I don't know.
I think with the whole wall thing, I mean, obviously the initiator of that was Kevin Samuels, and obviously the people that he calls in, for the most part, I mean, no one else is really, that I've seen, is really looking for advice from him in that way. If they do come on the show, it's more them giving advice to other women. So they're not looking for advice for themselves. So as far as I'm aware, the hit the wall thing was in relation to black women and young, well, past the age of 25, as they said. But I think most black men realize that that's the only thing that people can outwardly see that we have going for us. I mean, even me, myself, I get loads of compliments from people when they find out how old you are. Oh, I thought you were in your 20s, things like that. And I know a lot of black women that get the same kind of rhetoric. And I think it's pretty obvious that everyone knows, not for anything else, but for that particular quality, we do get our props for that. And it's just another way of taking away something, so that you're left with nothing to even lower your self-esteem even more. You're not known for your hair quality, you're not known for your skin tone, you're not known for your femininity, and the one thing you have left, we must remove this.
Well, I'll just say this because Lady A put something on chat which is true. What the war really came from, a lot of these Red Pill talk came from white men. So the war was about white men, and they talk about women in general, but definitely white men were the ones who came up with that war theory. Again, it might be 25 is the wall, 30 is the wall, 35. I've heard ranges, but definitely has spent from the white man.
I can understand why they've taken it on in that way. Because
they didn't want to initiate it. I think his name was Rollo Tomasi. It was white. The whole Red Pill is a white man's creation. well,
Right.
in this type of form. I know
And
people
I
say it's the Matrix and the
so
author. Yeah.
so the Black Male Collective has basically adopted this
Oh
and to
yeah,
bring for it over here.
it came
And
from the white.
the thing is, I can understand why it would have originated from a white man because um, it's pretty much true for their women under the age of 30. I think they're very beautiful. And they do have really early signs of aging. So I can kind of see how that rhetoric applies to them. Can't really see, though, how it applies to Black women in the Black community. But as I said, they have the whole thing around beauty, which I can admit, a lot of them, they are very well put together from an early age. Um, and people do find them, see them as more attractive. They have more social currency in that way. Even I remember at school, a lot of them, wearing makeup and being able to really put themselves together from a young age, whereas we were just plain Janes, no makeup, plain face, going to school. So I can understand, but I can also understand due to the aging process and just nature taking its course, why they would talk about hitting the wall at 30, but it doesn't really apply in this community. But as I said, as with anything else, they'll find a way to transfer those sentiments over. And that's my
Well,
thoughts on that.
there's two things I said at the stream was the wall is really about reproductive and your organs. So not necessarily about your appearance. So the wall was about a woman's best peak ages to have children. So this is where the war came from. This is where in China, if you're past like 30, you call leftover women. I think it's Sheng Sheng, something like that. But most of it was to do with reproductive rights. Now, that's one thing. But then you have sexual marketplace value, which for me is about if a man finds you attractive or how many men of a certain ilk find you attractive enough, which can range. Because again, some women, like you said, with Black women, because that whole black don't crack. If you can look really, really good past a certain age, and as long as the guy finds you attractive, that's really, really is. It's just a case of forget the whole she's past the age of having kids. If that woman or if that guy finds you attractive, it is what it is. He's still going to want to pursue.
Yeah, well, let's talk about these fertility things because, as we know, in poorer countries where there's sort of less third world countries, which is where most Black women are from, where there's less access to birth control. Even our grandparents, my grandparents included, have had loads of children well into the age of 40. There's actually, I believe there is some research around the fertility of Black women. If you look at most fertility centres, they're in areas where there is mostly a white population. You wouldn't go to Brixton and find a fertility service, whereas I can go to Sidcup and find a fertility service because it could be for many reasons. Could be because of economics, because we cannot really afford it, or because we don't really need it. So again, I don't know. I think that in terms of fertility, there could be things out there to debunk that point as well, because we all know I've seen many women walking around here from West Africa who are pregnant that don't look under the age of 40. So I beg to differ on that point.
I mean, I will say this. I do know melanin is definitely a key in terms of delay, because melanin is the key for childbirth. So I was watching this documentary about how important melanin is when it comes to child production. So I'll definitely say Black people will have clearly have the edge over non-melanated people, but I think it just pushes it to a certain. I don't know how. Again, it's all about averages and it's all about the best time. It doesn't mean that you can't have kids well into your 40s. We know that happens anyway. It's just the best time or sort of the optimum time when you should be thinking about having them, because it just becomes a little bit more dangerous. That's kind of what it is. I don't have the actual stats to say, the official date or most average, so I can't tell you that. So I'll take your word for it. But I know for a fact, melanin does help. It delays it, but I don't know how much it delays it for. It might just be for 5 years, a few years. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for people having children older because of all the issues and also the high maternal rates in our community as well. I'm not advocating for that. And yeah, there is various reasons. I mean, a lot of men in our community want to be the forever bachelor. So even if you wanted to settle down at 21, it's going to be quite difficult. Even if you find a man that's 40, chances are that they're not ready to settle down or not in the position financially or mentally to commit in that way, if they'll ever be. So I think it's very, very kind of different for our community. But as I said in the chat, I just think Thandi's having fun. She's been through the whole marriage and children process. So does this really apply to her? She's not desperate, quote unquote, like they would say a woman who is single and is childless is in the same way. I mean, I think people that have had children, people who've been through that whole process, I think it's quite different for them. And I think it's just a matter of them kind of living their life. I don't think they're too worried about whether they're going to get married again. Even Halle Berry said she weren't too bothered about getting married again, and then subsequently did get married again. But I think when you've been through that whole marriage, children thing, it's a different position. So I'm not quite sure why it's been aimed at at her directly. I would have imagined it would be aimed more at young women and women who are out here sort of desperate, sort of grappling to find someone and get married, rather than someone who's been through that whole process, knows what it's all about, got the t-shirt, and is not particularly interested and she's just going through a divorce, isn't she? So
So
the ink's not even, well, the paper's not even signed, the ink's not even dry. So I think marriage is the last thing on her mind. So why does this discussion about her being married? I don't know, but I do agree that women are able to attract men at a later age, and I don't know why. I just think women are better to look at generally.
I hope so.
Are more appealing. So I don't see why there's an issue. There would be an issue with that. And I agree with all of your points from earlier. But I'll let someone else come in. But thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, just regards to your last point, yeah, I think the measure stick about marriage kind of is less and less applying nowadays because the world's changing. So I don't think Thandi's situation, yeah, I don't think she's probably looking to settle down again. She's had 20 years of marriage. I think she's been there, done that, as you said, got the t-shirt. So again, it could just be fun, whatever it is. So yeah, I don't know what she's feeling like.
Do we know the reasons as to why she's divorcing her husband, or her husband's divorcing her?
I'm not too sure. All I heard was she had an issue on set with she got fired from the Magic Mike sequel. Something to do with the bust of Will Smith and Elle Hood. Heard that she's got a problem in her marriage. I've got no idea, if I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, we'll never know really. That's probably something they'll keep private. But I mean, she's at a different stage of life. So yeah, I just think at a certain point in life, you don't really care. All you care about is just, you're just sort of going with the flow. It's not the same urgency that you'd have as a 20-something-year-old woman. So yeah, I can kind of sort of understand her from that point.
Yeah. So I've got no idea, Tash, and yeah, I don't know. It's just different stage in your life, so different priorities. Lady A, let me pivot to yourself. So welcome, good evening. Hope you're doing well. What do you have on the topic?
Yeah, I don't even know what I have on the topic, to be honest with you, because I feel like there's always a lot of different things being said that are kind of like half true. Like first and foremost, why do the women in the women's sector keep thinking everything began with Kevin Samuels? Like, I just don't understand why everything is always blamed on Kevin Samuels.
Yeah, I never said that, but I just said that.
Like, it's like the manosphere has existed for like 15 years.
Pockets, that's all.
But he was the first one to bring it to our community. I think that's why.
I think it's just popular.
No, he wasn't. The manosphere has existed for 15 years.
Yeah, that's not
about 10 years before Kevin Samuels blew up.
Yeah, I wasn't making that point. I was simply saying that people are.
No, I'm not talking to you, Tash. I'm just talking to women in general. Right, I get so tired of hearing women on the internet blaming Kevin Samuels for everything. Like the manosphere didn't exist until he came around. It's irritating. And for when women go into these spaces and these conversations, this is one of the reasons why they get chewed up. No one's got a problem with you having an issue with the talking point, but at least make your statement factual so that you can argue based on what's actually true.
Well,
that's all I'm saying.
No, I hear that. But one thing I'm going to say on this is, even Kevin
Samuels. It's not for me because I know the up and the down. I know the left and the right. So I've been in this space long enough. So there's certain things I'm not going to say just because I know it's not true. But these ladies, they always say this thing about Kevin Samuels, like the manosphere, like as if O'Shea Duke Jackson didn't exist before Kevin Samuels or Tommy.
Yeah, no, I
It's
hear
like,
you.
why
I hear
do
you. I
people
hear you.
say
I hear you.
this?
But Lady A, onto the I hear you. Onto the topic though. Onto the topic because that's kind of a different point. So onto the topic then.
Yeah, that was just the first thing kind of grinding my gear, man. I was just like, God,
Well,
sorry,
here's what
go on.
it's like anything, isn't it? If it's people think that Thomas Edison created the light bulb, he didn't. It was Joseph Swan. Whoever's popular, people associate it with the most popular person. So because it's popular and everyone talks about him, people assume it's from that person because that person doesn't actually properly credit where he gets his talking points from. So with KS, he doesn't properly credit where his talking points come from because it didn't come from him. This is why, to your point, Lady
But
A,
the women
people
who
think it's
make
all from
those
Kevin.
arguments, they talk to women who know this, and the people who, for example, like the Cynthia G's and the Chrissies, they do talk about the manosphere before Kevin Samuels.
Yep.
So their audience do know that before Kevin Samuels, there were other men saying these things. It's just
But no one
because
cares
he's the
about them.
biggest
That's
one.
why.
But
Yeah, because
yeah,
no one cares
so
about them anyway.
now everything is just Kevin Samuels' fault. So let's go to the topic. I haven't actually watched Kevin Samuels' thing about Thandiwe Newton, but
Has he made a
I've
response on
heard
this?
this Pardon?
Has he talked about this? Has he even put a video on this?
No, I haven't actually watched this. I saw some clips about her now with some 25-year-old, and it's just like it's just becoming a I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about why marriage is the wall. Because at the end of the day, there's only so long women can really go on their own. Okay? I know we live in a country that has a lot of safety nets. When everything is working, we're like, I can go to my job and I'm just going to die at my workstation. I don't need a man. But in reality, that's the better option, to have a committed relationship with a man who wants to be there to provide, protect, lead, and all that kind of stuff. So the wall is when you can no longer attract a man who is willing to do that for you. And he hasn't got the capacity to do that. So all these older women getting with these young boys like Kim, getting with Pete Davidson, it's a downgrade. That's the point. Okay, you can get sex, but can you get commitment? And can you get a quality man who's gonna keep you and give you a better life than what you currently have? And a lot of these young guys that these women are having fun with, they can't get that. So okay, anybody can get sex. Like, that's not a big achievement.
Lady, let me ask you this though. That's your viewpoint on what the barometer is, because Kim K, let's be honest, she don't need no guy who can upgrade her life. Her life is pretty good. And let's be honest, Kim K helped Kanye's brand more than Kanye helped Kim's brand. Kanye probably hurt Kim's brand more than the other way around. So let's be honest, whether you say, oh, they need him, a lot of women don't need these guys nowadays. The society, women don't need men like men say that they do.
Kim's brand could not be her anymore. She has no accomplishments under her belt apart from a sex tape. She's literally done.
She has spearheaded a lot of where women have got, let's be honest. She's made her shape more popular than black women could ever do. Now, if that's a compliment, I don't know.
Yeah, kind of. There was the battle between Beyonce and J-Lo, and then she just came in. But I mean, whereas Beyonce and J-Lo, I'm pretty sure they're natural. Kim is artificial. So
irrelevant. It's irrelevant though, isn't it? Because now people are obviously women getting BBL. So it's not as if Kim K's not established.
Not really, because
yes.
Okay, she made our shape mainstream for non-black people because we already had the shape.
But that's the most important thing. That's where it counts, though. That's where it counts. No offense, but unless white people take it on, we don't care about it.
He's right.
So all that stuff about that is irrelevant.
I'm not bothered.
White person, yeah, but we are. Let's be honest. We are. Once white people have made it somewhere, that's it. That's mainstream. That's called mainstream.
We have to be.
That may be mainstream, but I mean, at the end of the day, okay, maybe I don't know, because are black women getting more work as a result of their body shape now being, mainstream?
Yeah, black women go on that BBL train all the time. You see all
No,
these
I'm not talking about the BBL train. I'm talking about as a result of our body shape going mainstream. Are we benefiting from it?
Well, it depends how you see benefiting, because though that body shape is desired, and a lot It depends on how you see it. Again, you use marriage as a barometer. I don't use marriage anymore.
No, I wasn't
because-
using marriage as a barometer this time. I'm just saying in general, because I think black people have a habit of resting on their laurels too much. It's like, we invented this, we have this, we naturally have that. Okay, but how is that turning over into some type of profit? If it isn't, what's the point to brag about it?
But I
If
suppose that-
everybody else is benefiting more from what we create or possess, there's no reason to be like, yeah, well, I'm natural. It's like, okay, but are you making money from your natural shape that this woman went and paid for? If the answer is no, what's the point to brag about it?
well,
We
some
won't,
are.
we're not going to make money from it because there are other women that are lauded up, even by the men in our own community, more than we are. So
No, I don't
our
think that's
features
true.
are they even in if you look at music videos, in who they cast for media, they're lauding certain women over women who originally have these features. So no, we're not going to make any money out of it because these men are part of the Trinity. So of course they're not going to promote what's inherently close to them. So
It is what it is, because it's 50-50. I personally don't take pride seeing black women shaking their butts in and twerking in videos and being strippers. And we do see that a lot. In music videos, there are a lot of black women, and that's what they're doing.
they're racially
That's how
ambiguous now, actually. They're racially
Pardon?
ambiguous now. They're racially
Well,
ambiguous now,
it
actually.
doesn't matter. To most people, they'll be
They're not
classified
black
as
women.
black.
They're
So
not black women.
they may not be fully black, but they're not going to be deemed as white by people who are not black.
No, they're
You know what I mean?
exotic.
To an
They're
Asian
exotic.
person, a mixed race is a black.
They're
To a
quote
white person,
unquote.
a
They're
mixed.
quote unquote exotic, and no one would ever refer to a black woman as exotic.
To non-black
As funny
people,
as it sounds.
to non-black people, those people who are melanated are called black. Meghan Markle, to a non-black person, is called black. I've heard white people call Meghan black, and I'm like, isn't she Italian? I don't know what this is. So at the end of the day, there's nothing to be proud of when we say, oh, our body type is now mainstream, and the only time you see the body type recognized is when it's like hanging off a pole. That's not positive for black women's image either.
But lady, this is where I'm going to sort of disagree with you, because white women's bodies have always been loaded up as a sex object. So we're talking about black women here, but white women, when it comes to their shape, page 3 of the Sun, that was always white women with the big breasts. That was always something that was put up by, Hugh Hefner,
and they should keep it.
But what I'm trying to say is, though, and this is how it is with the sexes, women's bodies has always been an object of sexual desire throughout history. That's nothing new. Matter of fact, this is where the sexes are different. Women normally, again, it is not a manosphere talk point, it is a fact. Women's bodies are there to be desired, men's desires in a different kind of way. That's just how it always has been. So I disagree with that. That's always been the case for both sexes, both races, all races, that their women's bodies are there to be desired. Asian women, because they're slender bodies, they get looked on. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. That's how life has been.
That's true. That's true. And then if I could say one more point, I think Fiona was saying something about, this is an attack on black women in terms of like, what did she say? About how, the only thing the black woman has left is the fact that she looks younger than her age. You were saying something like that, like black women are not like desired for their hair or something like that. They're not desired for their...
That's the only redeeming feature that others see. Yes, I think so.
Okay, because what I wanted to say is this again. Where are all the, I know there was a natural hair movement that was actually started by a black man. Sergeant Willie Pete was actually the one who was like really going hard saying, why can't black women wear the hair like it came out of their head? So yeah, black men do want to see black women with natural hair, but we don't see black women fighting. Well, we do now a bit on YouTube, trying to be natural. So again, it's like, you cannot blame other people for not valuing something we don't value. If we are not fighting to wear our own hair, why is anybody else gonna say, I love the way black women style their natural hair? If most black women are not styling their natural hair.
But that's being a bit disingenuous. I think the natural hair movement is absolutely massive. It's never been bigger. And I've seen natural hair.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger, but you don't necessarily think of a black woman with beautiful natural styles.
Yeah, it's
She
not
you
yeah,
mostly
but
see
they
black
are
women
working.
with like either now the big chop or a weave.
Oh my
I think the
goodness.
point is irrelevant. I think the point is irrelevant. I think the point I was trying to make was that if you look to outside communities, the thing that they compliment us on most is our skin, and that's with us out. That's without us even saying anything. You know, you'll get people. I mean, we don't usually tend to share our ages much anyway, but you'll get people in certain spheres when you tell them how old you are confidentially, they're like, and they're not black, they're like, oh wow, I thought you were, you know.
Yeah,
So
younger, of
it
course.
is something that they normally, they don't compliment about hair, they don't compliment us about anything else, but the
But why
aging
would they,
aspect is something
Fiona?
that they
If you're
would.
wearing a weave, why would they compliment you on your natural hair when they can't see it?
Well, the whole weave phenomena is something that's really new to the UK, and I don't think we kind of discussed that enough. In the 90s, it wasn't really something that was that popular, and it's is a trend, become more of a trend in the last, I don't know, decade or so. So yeah, I think that that whole weave thing is something that is more kind of an American
Yeah,
based
maybe.
image that's come over in more
But
recent
I'm just
years.
saying everything that you mentioned, it's not black women fighting to be as natural and as,
Mm.
as radiant within their natural black beauty as possible. It's oftentimes, see, the things you mentioned, if black women are not the ones elevating it, why would anybody compliment us on it? If
Yeah,
we're
and I
not the
think.
most in shape with the best
Mm.
bodies, we can't be complimented on our figure. If we're not wearing our natural hair, we can't be complimented on our hairstyles.
And I think it's interesting that we are called upon the most to promote ourselves and do all of the work in our community, which is quite typical, really. That it's expected for us to carry all of that burden. So we're doing self-promotion.
No, you're not asking.
We
No
all
one's
know that
asking
other
you to
women,
do a magazine. No one's asking
we
you to
all,
redo
yeah,
Chrissy's
but
Divine
we
Dark
all know
Skin.
that
Just wear your
other
natural hair.
women, just like any other human being, take take their confidence from other people complimenting them and other people raising them. More typically, they're men
Okay,
raising
but
them
how
up.
can
So
you compliment something that's not there?
Yeah, but depend. But lady, let me say this though, because black guys like women who aren't skinny in average. That's why, again, when it comes
Yeah,
to our
but I
body
mean, now
shapes,
you're
it's
bringing a
different.
false dichotomy because
Not
just
really,
because
because you're
somebody is
saying,
shapely doesn't mean to say curvy, like a UK size 12, 14, 16, is the same as a 22. Like somebody
well,
who's 170 pounds, 150 pounds is not the same as somebody who's
but then
370 pounds.
this is where you're going sometimes a bit extreme with it. So I agree with you there. I agree with you there, lady. But this is where you're getting extreme with it, and how it pushes the boundaries is if we like bigger women, then women are naturally going to want to be bigger. Now, yes, it goes crazy, but like white men, I'm telling you, I know white boys who, if a little bit of size, they think they're fat. So we know that was never going to be the case. So this is a bit of a cultural dynamic here, where certain cultures are just differently based. Where a lot of white guys, they're like these anorexic looking boy women. That's what I mean when I
Yeah,
say
boy
these
body, yeah.
boy. I'm telling you, boys. So I don't know. So there are things I agree with, but things like sometimes if a black
Yeah,
woman
but
who's
again,
fit for a
thick
black
is
guy,
still. But who should tell a girl, daughter, you're getting too big now? It should be the mother.
yeah,
The mother
yeah.
should see that her daughter's getting too heavy and say, girl, you're putting on too much weight now. Because if we are the ones who fight to be obese, and let's just use the word, and we're talking about like plus size, if we fight as the women to be obese, eventually the men will just say, this is what a black woman looks like, I'm going to accept it. So why would they force us to change when we're the ones who told them, not only are we not going to change, but you should just like it. This is what a black woman looks like. Don't you like when I'm fluffy? Do you
well,
know
I
what I'm
think
saying?
this
So
is
the
another
women are
sort
the
of
ones who also
exaggeration,
defend
because
the obesity.
I think this is another form of exaggeration, because in Europe, generally, we don't have, and no disrespect to anyone that's American in the chat, but we don't have an obesity problem at the same rate as those in the Americas, in Europe. I see people, well, women, black women of different shapes and sizes. So I'm going to have to disagree that there's a complete, my 600-pound life going on over in Europe. Our portions are smaller. We've always been that way. Our portions have always been more kind of monitored.
But it's getting there. I see a
So
lot of young girls now that are getting too big. Young girls in school in their uniform, and they're
yeah, it's
heavier
because
than
it's the
me.
whole
I don't even know
it's
how
the
much they weigh,
it's
but I
the
know they're heavier than me.
Well, I would agree, and it's the whole chicken shop culture, isn't it? You know, you don't get a cooked
Yeah.
meal at home, so you're going to go to
Yeah,
the chicken shop
Yeah.
and get,
Totally
you know,
agree.
chicken and
it's not
chips.
even they don't get it. Before they've reached home, they've already gone to the shop with the friends,
Mm,
because I see them at the bus stop.
mm.
You
Right,
know,
let
but
me,
You're
Lydia,
right.
let me pivot to Diego. Set
again,
the
if
context.
a lot of these people wouldn't allow their daughters to get big. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for that. Diego, welcome to the stream. We've kind of gone a lot of ways in the topic, so wherever you want to pick up, then that's fine. We'll probably get back to it.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for welcoming me. Evening, everyone. Evening. And greetings to anyone else who's not in is it GMT? No, British summertime. Anyhow, interesting topic. I would say, okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is to do with Thandiwe Newton, right? I think that was pretty much the topic. I made a comment in the comment section a bit earlier that she is not a regular woman. And so the worst thing someone can do is, I won't say the worst thing, but what probably isn't helpful is to compare her to like your regular woman. I think given her, her profile, probably income, that kind of status, she's going to be more appealing to many younger men. Granted, there are women who also have, their own kind of spending power, who may not be in the public eye the way Thandiwe Newton is. They also will have that same kind of leverage. But in the main, I have to keep it real, tell the truth, shame the devil. The pulling power that a lot of older women are going to have is that for the younger men, they're going to be quite easily accessible. You understand? They're going to be probably more accessible, more forthcoming sexually than their age mates, their female age mates. So that's really what it comes down to. I would be careful in extrapolating instances where younger men who do get with older women do so with some sort of sincere desire to, live out at least her days, happily ever after and what have you. A bit like, is it Peggy Windsor from EastEnders and that man that she was with, the Scott guy, who was with her right to the end. I mean, that kind of stuff is exceedingly rare.
Well, I was going to say, even now with people who are age appropriate, so those days are over in my head. So
yeah, straight up.
Anyway, but continue.
Yeah, no, cheers for that. Yeah. So I would honestly just caution women against doing that if my opinion counts for much. Now, with respect, I think the antisocial socialite podcast made a good point. Irrespective of what has been happening with the independent woman movement, which is for me been an emphatic failure, getting married and looking to couple up is probably the best bet when it comes down to survival. That whole adage of the sum of the whole is greater than its constituent parts, and I think for many Black people that's probably the best, especially for the women in this case. It's going to be a tricky element because there are some women who look at, should I say, cooperating domestically as slavery. So some men are going to have to get past that. I guess the men and women that couple up together henceforth are going to have to figure that out amongst themselves. But I would say that, reiterating, what, like I said, what socialite podcast said, and Kevin Samuels, it's not going to get easier out here. There's been steady cutbacks in welfare spending, at least in the UK, since 2010, since the coalition government came in. And, I can't really see there being much, should I say, an expansion, in the availability of public resources. And in the US, I mean, I guess to an extent it's kind of out of my way, if you will. But from what Kevin Samuels has said, that situation isn't going to let up. There's, in some extreme cases, I think there's talk of homelessness or the prospect of homelessness. So
yeah, but that's affecting men more. See, this is the thing where I'm telling you, you need to check back on what he's saying. He doesn't. Homelessness is affecting Black. You look at the homelessness of Black men over there. Listen, this is why I'm on this phase where I'm not this kind of stuff for me. I'm like whatever, but Black men are the ones who are suffering over there like crazy. Not Black women, Black men are. So personally, the days of marriage for necessity is gone. It's about marriage for more. If you like the partner, if it's not about marriage for, oh, you need to survive together. Those days are gone because of the way how the world is, the Western world is.
I, I'm not
Marriage now
disputing
is
that.
changed.
I'm not disputing that, and
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you with respect to men being homeless. Men have always been homeless. We know that there's not
yeah.
exactly the same level of
Support
welfare
for,
provision,
yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
that's a given. That's a constant, whether or not the economy is strong or not. It goes without saying. But I think when it comes down, if we're using his, he's speaking to a certain set of women who may want to have a rethink. Of course, he's also said that if they can save up enough money to see themselves through to their life end or come to some kind of living arrangement with other single women, then they'll be okay. But they'll figure it out.
bro. I'm seeing more men who need to have that mindset
Yeah.
you're having than women. I'm telling you, I've seen men
Mhm.
who have died with nothing because that's what men
Yeah.
do. But I hear what you're saying. Sorry, I
Yeah,
just want
no,
to.
that's fine. I think a lot of men. You see, this is what's interesting, right? Because of this kind of hyper consumerist culture that's grown over the last few decades.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people seem to think that if you're not keeping up with the Joneses, you don't have some kind of ability to attract glances due to what material possessions you have, that somehow you're a failure. We're in a very different age,
yeah,
where
true.
um, you know, I guess if we're looking at, I think a lot of us tend to look at the silent gen and the boomers, like the early boomers and their kind of marriage situation, and say that that was like the barometer of successful marriages. And I disagree, because though that marriage culture arose under a very specific set of circumstances. As you said, the world is a different place now, and I would even go one further, in saying that we're living in a post-marital society. Does that mean that people aren't going to get married? Of course they're going to get married, but in the main, I just don't see it happening. I mean, and on a quick note, on that, I had to look back on my earlier years, right? I had friends that were like, council estate. I had friends that were billionaires' children, right? So quite a wide group. But what they did have in common was many of them had similar living arrangements. Do you understand? There's an exceedingly small number that actually had like their mum and dad together.
Right.
But in the main, nah, like, you understand, they didn't really. You had divorced couples, you had single parents, you had all kinds of different living arrangements, and it did not matter based on the social, their status in society, if that makes sense. So I think it's been creeping, and this is my observations from about 92 up until like now. So we're talking about pretty much a 30-year period. You know, but yeah, I think we're going to say something. I can go on and on, but yeah,
No.
yeah.
This conversation I had with my brother about this, and he said
Mm.
the point that rich people and the poor people, they will have probably like rich people have marriage divorce. They seem to go through a lot of iterations, kids here, kids there, because they have the ability to do so. And I think poor people, they go through a similar sort of venture because they're poor, but it's normally the middle class, they get squeezed. They're the ones who end up probably not having deciding between kids and no kids, or marriage or no marriage. But when you was mentioning billionaires' sons and whatnot, and I was like, yeah, I can imagine, because their life will be very much more hectic because of the finances in play. That's how I perceive it. So I don't know if that's true or not. You tell me.
Yeah, what? I'll say this much. And this is one reason why I try to not presuppose people's reasons for getting into relationships. When I spoke to, because like I said, that they came from different walks of life. I was friends with black kids. Obviously, I didn't know at the time that their dads were like, politicians that stole money from their respective countries, like Nigeria and Congo. But that's aside. I was friends with, I was friends with I was friends with people that were like the children of refugees that had actually been compelled to leave Somalia, to leave like Sudan, Congo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, etc. So I had a different range of friends. And what I found was that a lot of the time, whether it was the wealthy people or whether it was obviously the people that weren't wealthy, the parents were together for necessity. You understand? In some cases, that their mums were really attractive, so you can see why the dads were interested in them. In other instances, said women, they weren't necessarily in love with these men, but it was practical. And so once they'd pumped out the children, the relationship pretty much, faltered, because that was fundamentally what they were after. So my thing is that, you have all these kinds of is it, what do they call it now? Is it your childhood sweetheart and college sweetheart and all this other stuff? Those were my very, very small, almost negligible instances where I observed that people's parents were together. You understand? But in the main, it was necessity that drove them to go. I just think that the culture we're in now has sort of really made this so glaringly obvious, but it's been creeping for decades. And I'll say that it coincides with, to an extent, I'm not saying correlation, not causation necessarily. The sexual revolution, I think, has played an instrumental part in how it's transformed the relationship dynamic, not just in the mainstream, but also among Black people. I'd even argue among Black people was particularly acute. But yeah, so you're going to say something?
Yeah, I think most of it is down to one thing, and I've said this: freedom and choice. So men for centuries have been wanting to press women into doing what they want them to do when it comes to this piece. So, but even still, before the sexual revolution, men and women were both suppressed in certain aspects. I can't even say that. But it's all about choice. And I think once you open up choice, you're going to have more of these type of situations where you don't have to stay together, for example, because divorce is no longer taboo. Single motherhood is no longer taboo. So once you remove, once you're liberated, once you remove shame, this is what happens. So I think that it all coincides with those two things. If it's not a shame to be a single mother, then keep on doing it. If you praise it, keep on doing it. If it's okay to be sexually promiscuous, keep on doing it. I think that's kind of part and parcel of it. It's just the culture and the necessity part. The society now means that you don't, let's be honest. I think there's an argument that says you probably should be coupling up, but not married. So it's all these different things which coincide with it. So yeah.
Wim, I just a quick one. You made an interesting point. When I said sexual revolution, like the introduction of abortion, the mass rolling out of it, the influences from popular culture, I guess Sex and the City is a very obvious one, but you're like the cosmopolitan magazines. Literally, many women have been on the end of live your life, city girl lifestyle. If you're going to be domestic, because initially, I would even argue that the women's right movement was not necessarily in quote feminism, it was literally women's rights. It was to avoid women losing their jobs in the first trimester from being pregnant. It was fundamentally about choice. But then sneaky people that stood to make a lot of money snuck in the abortion bill, snuck in the message that women have been sexually suppressed by men, which is not true. I mean, paternity fraud is age old. That's just one example of that. But nevertheless, no. Paternity fraud is a real thing. It's been going on for a minute. Trust me, I've spoken to different people, and I thought
think about it, there would have been no technology back then to prove this. So
it's been going on. It's been going on. Like when I done my, not to digress, but when I done my genealogy test, a lot of people found out that their fathers, I spoke to a handful of people, their fathers were not the fathers they thought they were. So then they now had to update their bio saying, I thought my father was my father, but my father's not my father. Any information on where my father is? And I will connect with them. And they'll be like, do you know where my father is? I'm like, how the hell am I going to know where your father is? Like most of my distant family are like American, so they would be asking me these questions. And look, I'm not knocking them, but it just kind of underscores the kind of difficulties. Things been happening. Like this is just a reality. It's just that people that were living a certain kind of lifestyle beforehand used to be shamed, and things were turned on its head.
No, you're right.
So
because,
go on.
I was just going to say on that point, you're right, because what would happen is once the woman knows she was pregnant and the family knew, they'll quickly have to marry her. So they'll quickly get married to stop the shame of her having a child before she was officially married. So before she's showing, they'll get her married off quick, and then that other guy who she had the child with, forgotten. So yeah,
man. So I mean, I agree with you. The choice has been influenced. I think to a certain extent, freedom of choice is a bit relative because people need some kind of influences in which to actually, make their decisions. And they're always going to make their decisions based on what the prevailing voices are in that given time in society. So I know that there are many women that have gone down the very sexually liberal path. And I know that they wouldn't have had it not been for the doubling down in, live your best life, men, don't let men suppress you, have as much sexual partners as you need. Like, I get that people were probably getting it in before this whole thing became popular. But if you consider okay, case in point, I remember I read an article by an American chick, right? I think it was
Sorry, can we just confirm that? So what you're saying is sexual liberation is partly responsible for, the position that women are in now.
100%, because at the end of the day, it's not easy to be. Yeah, it's not easy to be part of a committed couple. It's not easy. It's not a panacea by any stretch. It's not a panacea, but it certainly does explain part of it. So what I would say is that, like I said, women that I knew from when I was younger who, Never. They got caught up in the source. They got lost in, you know, the influences. Live your best life. Do what you want to do. Bish bash bosh. And look, at the end of the day, people are grown. They should enjoy themselves. But I think many of us in life, and this is just on a broader level, we want the best we can get out of life, but there's almost a fear factor in trying to get what I call balance or equilibrium. Do you understand? People tend to maybe make different choices, but for the similar reasons. Scarcity mindset. So I think with the sexual revolution, and I tilt it towards women because they're the ones that have access to sex. They're the ones that ultimately are the gatekeepers of it. You understand? You know, people aren't out here trying to, you know, at least for the most part, impose themselves. So they've influenced male sexual behavior. Men, for example, I'm not trying to be all over the place, but men have adapted their personalities, even if it's more like a public persona, to make themselves more desirable to women. You understand? There's a lot of guys that I know for a fact are not about that life. Like, yeah, I'm a bad man. But they took on that persona. Some guys from good homes took on that persona because they knew that it would get women going. So I'm just saying.
I disagree on that.
You can disagree with that, but I'll tell you that many of the guys that are, you know, what I call edgy or bad when I've presented.
So are you?
Okay,
Are you?
I'd like to hear.
They've done that. So
Are you taking into consideration the?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry. No, I was just going to ask if
all I was saying is that a lot of guys have adapted themselves in order to attract women. If women started to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Reward men, in quote. When I say reward men, give their time and attention to men, even if they've not made it, you can kind of gauge that this person is actually got the mindset. If that was to happen and they weren't considered to be lame, then, you know, things might be a bit different. You find more guys at least tilted to more the progressive.
I kind of think you're drawing a wide brush, and I think one thing that you're not considering is the cultural aspect. Now, if you're talking about women outside of our community, and I'm guessing that you're from the Black community, then I would agree. But if you're talking about women inside the community, we've always, for a long time, we had this sort of suppressed. The impression was that we were quite suppressed in our sexuality. So I don't completely agree with the fact of this whole liberation and
that is definitely not true. You're talking about you've heard. So listen, at the end of the day, I've done extensive research on this. I'm not saying this as someone who's just literally put my finger in the air and kind of derive my answer from that. No. Believe you and me, this idea of women having had their sexuality suppressed is not true.
I know, Diego. I think what Fiona means, sorry to cut in, is, and this is, I can show you clips on this.
Okay, go for it.
They used to say white women were more sexually better in bed. They used to do things that Black women never used to do. That is
exactly. Thank you very much.
I'm not disputing. I'm not disputing that, right? But it depends on the country in question, right? I do remember in fairness to
the UK. I'm talking about the UK.
Okay, UK. Okay, fine. In the case of the UK, I will concede to a degree that, because I think I read an article, a Guardian article, like when I was writing my book, I came across some random content, and I will concede that there were Caribbean women, just like 95, mind you, complaining about a lack of available mates. They said that the few Black men that were looking to couple up were getting with white women because the white women were more sexually liberal. They're more likely to, you know, engage in third passage than Black women were. So I will concede that to a degree, but then I would say that at the same time that the sexual cult, you put it like this, even if you want to argue that the societal attitudes were more conservative back then, things happen behind closed doors, and now people have veered from, if you want to say that they were all conservatives and suppressed, they've gone from one extreme to another. You understand? At the end of the day, I will contend that the extreme that they've now reached, hasn't done them many favors. And I'll go one further and I'll drop it at this. Women obviously have access to more sexual opportunities because they get approached more. There's a sizable number of men who are incels, literally involuntarily celibate. They ain't getting no action. Even if it's from women that some might not consider to be desirable, they can't even buy attention from women. So this idea that it's men screwing over women is completely false. There's a small number of men, whether they're really wealthy or men who just perhaps have access to women and, We got guys that they just have that edginess and they just attract women for whatever reason. So those are the guys that are getting, you know, the bulk of the, should I say they're getting the bulk of the women. You understand? So this is the reality, and every other guy kind of has to find a way to adapt. Some guys will be principled, and by extension will now, you know, obviously have to refine the quality of women they get. With other guys,
I
just
don't
make.
I don't 100% agree with that, to be
You
honest
don't have
with you. Well, I'm being very, very clear on that. I think that's a fraudulent statement to make, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of men out there that have.
Did you say fraudulent?
Yeah, so unfortunately,
Nah, come on.
No,
No,
I'm going to say that because I do think there are a lot of men that do screw around women, and I don't think we should hide the fact that that takes place, especially within our community.
Yeah, and I
Right.
think it's ironic that Diego's come on here talking about independent women. Can we talk about the years and decades of men within our community in particular being very independent, not wanting to settle down, listening to their friends who are telling them, don't get married, stay single forever. And then they're just throwing their hands up and saying, okay, I'll do it on my own. And that's why this whole independent trope came about. It's not because they necessarily wanted to do it on their own. It's because they had no choice, because you men weren't committing. And that it's as simple as that. And you can try and change history
Let's
as
not
much as
change.
you want.
You're revising history.
Particularly
You're
in
the
this
historical
community.
revisionist here.
Particularly in this community, and we all
Because
know what this community was and still is.
The community, as you're referring to, is you're painting it with broad brushes. There's not a community. There's a set of communities. In any case,
well,
right?
you made a broad statement about an independent woman, which I thought was quite ironic.
Independent women came from a particular popular culture. The whole, you look at it in popular cultural terms, starting from Oprah in the 80s, the seeds were pretty much being sown. If I'm talking about from a UK perspective, because many women consumed American popular culture too. So that's the reason why there's certain parallels between what happened in the US and what happened here. So starting from Oprah, the likes of Ricky Lake, Sally Jesse Raphael, Montel Williams, and so on and so forth. They were the ones that started to now push the narrative that, you know, women. Okay. Then you now started to have the lyrics in certain songs in the 90s, right? I'm sure that many people can relate with I don't want no scrubs. That was one, but there were so many different examples of that, yeah.
Well, then we could flip it and talk about the men's lyrics that were dumbing down women, that were promoting taking each other's women and philandering about.
Population growth, yeah. The black population in the UK, I'm going to be careful in calling it community. The black population in the UK, yeah, has pretty much expanded, proliferate pretty much from like 2001 to like 2011. So what I'm saying to you, can I let me finish? What I'm saying to you is this. When it comes down to that,
you can't bring up those songs and then not discuss the history of music in that genre. There's been a number.
It was a money grab. It was ultimately a money grab. America produced the art form, right?
You can't hold women and feminism responsible for that.
They produced the art form. America produced the art form.
Music is a degenerate
and then
kind
they
of
went
music.
they went looking
and anti-women.
They went
and
looking
anti-marriage and anti-family.
Highly promiscuous.
They went looking for markets. Don't get it twisted, yeah.
I get it. I understand what you mean.
Any popular culture, yeah, any popular cultural machine that pushed out this narrative that women independent, women independent, women independent. That came from America, because they were looking for markets. In much the same way, think of any American TV, program or music or whatever. They were simply looking for markets. Do you understand? Well, what that did was that it did influence behavior here in the UK. That has to be very much emphasized. If you're going to talk about men's behavior, you really have to start to be more granular and look at the different places that people migrated from.
Other black male culture influenced your behavior. Other black male culture and promotion influenced your behavior. Yes, it did. Yes, it did, because you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You wanted to go around to different parts of the UK and procreate and create this incestuous community where people are having children from all over the place.
First and foremost, relax. I am second generation, Nigerian British, okay? I didn't grow up in a so-called black community. I grew up around some Caribbean people. When it came down to schooling and some of my social experiences, I did. But those were the people that I had the most exposure to. It was only when I hit like my late teens, early 20s, when I started to come into contact with more Africans than Nigerians. That coincides with the expansion of the African population in the UK. So what I'm trying to tell you is this, yeah, depending on where you came from, there's a lot of guys, a lot of black guys, as you label them, who were virgins until they were pretty much older, yeah. There was a small number of men who basically got away with like having loads of children. And I'll tell you this much, the guys that I know, this is anecdotal, but there is some relevance to on a broader level, right? The guys that I came across that you either had this, you had guys that were single and eventually went and got married or didn't, and they're childless, because I'm childless and I ain't been married and I'm in no hurry to do that just yet. And you had the guys that had multiple baby mothers. You didn't really have, it was pretty much extreme. Do you understand?
Yeah, and it's similar. You have a lot
of my Caribbean friends. I mean, a lot of my Caribbean friends, yeah, cool people. One thing I observed with them, yeah, and again, make of this real. No. This is not. Look, I got love for my Caribbean. I've even got Caribbean family. I ain't trying to knock anybody. All I'm saying is this: year, when it came down to my Caribbean friends, one thing I observed, right, with the exception of one or two, a lot of them, their dads had. There's not like their dads weren't looking after them. I'm just saying their dads had several different. They had children with different women, like on average 3 or 4.
In African homes as
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So
Diego,
what I'm saying to you, what I'm saying to you is this: if you're talking, you have to section it, because, like, for example, I'm not saying it's solely.
Diego, you're not letting us respond. Yeah, but you can't just make several statements.
I'm really done. I'm not saying it's solely a Caribbean thing, yeah. What I'm telling you, listen. I'm gonna finish. All I'm saying to you is that it's not necessarily exclusively the Caribbean thing. I'm talking about you have to look at the behavior, because the expansion in population has reduced since 2011, right? 0.4% overall growth. You can't tell me that the black so-called population is outstripping on a proportionate level the wider population growth. Literally in the last couple of decades, 0.4% population growth as a total. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to tell you is this: when I was looking at this whole idea of men doing this, men doing that, yeah, most of my friends, right, who were Caribbean, that, let's say, for example, they had a few.
Diego, we have to be able to respond.
Can I just finish what I'm saying? They were first generation migrant Caribbean men. So it's difficult. I can't say to you that I have the same.
You can't talk for the Caribbean. Sorry,
I can't. No, let me finish. I can't tell you that I have the same worldview, or the guys that I grew up have the same worldview as the first generation. Do you understand? That's not true. And then when I look at my friends now who came from those environments, they didn't repeat
Caribbean people. That's not. You can speak to Caribbean people.
I didn't say this. I'm giving you a certain insight. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
You can't.
But the reason why that came about was because Fiona started saying, "You black men and the black men and you black men."
Hold on. Can I respond?
Right, Diego.
Can I respond?
Fiona, Tash, you can respond. Then I want to get African Empress in, because she's been waiting patiently.
Sorry, African Empress. I know you've been patiently waiting. I just wanted to pick up on something that he said about differences in the men in our community, African versus Caribbean. Now, in my experience, as you've had lots of Caribbean friends, I've had African friends, mainly from West Africa. And what I've noticed is, I've talked about this before on other platforms, is the whole 6-month father thing. So what they would do is they would marry a woman in the UK, and then they would go to either Nigeria or Ghana on quote unquote business. Now, what we found was happening is they say, oh, my father's, he's out of the country now, he's gone on business. But what was happening was they were creating another family in the diaspora. And essentially, the women that were left here to look after their children were like single married mothers. So they were working 2 to 3 jobs. They were, their kids were essentially latchkey kids. So that's my experience. So although you may have been marrying more, the behaviors were the same.
I never said anything about marrying more.
So before you come on here,
be very no. I need to clarify that. I don't even want to cut you, but do not put words into my mouth. I never said anything about having a higher birth rate. That's not what I said. Okay. What I tried to tell you is that based on generations, yeah, there were different. You can make an argument that there were different sexual choices, if that makes sense. Do you understand? The environment back then was very different. Let me tell you, I'm not sure if you know about the lovers rock genre, yeah, because I know several people, like my friends' older siblings. Many of them were born during the lovers rock era. Lovers rock era, right? and shall I say, the correlation with that and the children that were being born at that time, yeah, very different environment. When it came down to mating opportunities, socializing, different compared to what you would now see in the generations that came thereafter. I'm not disputing how many. Look, I know of several different African, Nigerian inclusive people who their dads have more or less kind of been, shall I say, vacillating between the
Yeah,
UK
because
and
they
Nigeria.
were,
I'm
yeah,
not
they were
denying that, but please don't put
intercontinental.
words
They
into
were,
my mouth
well,
about me
the point
saying
I'm
that
trying to
Africans
make.
had a higher
Okay,
population. I never said
okay,
that.
I
I
won't
never
put
said
words
that.
into your mouth. I won't put
All I
words
was
into
trying
your
to look, at
mouth.
the end of the day,
But
I'm not
the point,
disputing everything you're saying.
the point
I'm
I'm
just
trying to
asking you
make
to
is
keep
the
a broad mind.
behaviors. The
Keep an open mind that
behaviors.
sexual behavior,
Yeah, but
which was
hold
really
on,
a
Diego.
Hold on,
function of
Diego. Hold on,
Can
social
he
Diego. Let
talk?
experiences.
Fiona finish.
Can he
You've kind of,
talk? Can he
yeah, let Fiona
talk?
What, yeah,
finish.
Because you're not allowing
what
him
I
to
was
talk.
what I was trying to say is the behaviors are the same, and the mentality, the cultural mentality is the same. So whether someone has had, okay, I won't mention marriage because you didn't mention marriage, but essentially what you were saying, and the reason I brought that in was you were saying that, you know, the people in the African culture were more tending to get married or settle down and things like that. But then there's another flip side to that, and I'm just explaining to you what I've seen in terms of the 6-month father culture, where they're 6 months in the UK and they're 6 months somewhere else, and essentially they abandon the UK family because in their mind they'll be okay. But no, the mothers were working extremely hard with 2 to 3 jobs. The children were being left at home and told, "Oh, don't open the door to anyone." And this is the culture that I saw. I went around many friends' houses who had never ever met their parents at home, and it's simply because their parents were working and their parents were mothers who uh, uh, who say that they had husbands, but you'd never seen them. They were never there. So this is what I've experienced. So I'm looking at it as on a different type of lens. And I think that the African community is probably very good at covering things up. But from what I've seen, they were experiencing the same traumas that we as a Caribbean community were experiencing with the men.
I see. Listen, what you're saying is more or less like a straw man's argument because I did not dispute anything about Africans. What I told you was that as time has gone by, from when I was a child up until where I am in my more or less mid-30s, I've observed changes, right, in sexual behavior, social experiences, so on and so forth. That's going to end. That's going to affect things. So what I'm trying to tell you, by you saying all black men this, I have a problem with that. There's a reason why nowadays, yeah, you got single men. I know obviously there's an American argument, but in the UK, there's single men who don't really want to hear this talk about black community, because there'll be people like you that will now say that you're all guilty. You don't creating baby mums and this, that, and the other. And they're thinking, hang on a second, yeah. I've worked hard to be the best version of myself. That's an ongoing thing. And yet there are people like you that want to task with all the same brush. You know what? Go to hell. So if you ever say anything to me about black community, I'm going to tell you where to go. And there are guys that are embracing that now. Do you understand? Because they
Well,
don't want to hear this narrative.
there's also
They don't
single
want to
women
hear
that
this
are going
narrative.
their own way. There's also
Well, they
single
can go
women
their
that are
own way.
going
There's
their
no one holding on to them. Let me tell you right now, yeah,
yeah.
this idea of a community, right, has to serve a particular function. I've said this before and I'll say it again. We may have more black people now in the UK. You know, London is probably quite a concentrated example of this, right, than we have had since, you know, in living memory, or even from the Second World War up till now. But it's never been more divided. Do you understand? It's kind of like what I call like a shit show. It's almost like a free for all. There are instances, yeah, where people do come along for protests, like the girl that got unfairly strip searched and violated. Sure, there was a certain kind of turnout, but in the main, I will not tell you there's join up behavior, because some people, right, they have chosen to use gender as to take precedent over race, but then they want to vacillate between the two. So when it serves them, they're doing what do you call it, gender, and then
I
when they're
don't
not
agree
doing
with that
gender,
at
now
all. I
doing
really
race, yeah.
don't agree with that.
And
No.
that's
I
what you
don't.
got to keep in
No.
mind.
Hold on.
You got to keep that in
Black
mind.
women don't partner up with white women on gender-based issues. We have no other optional choice.
Okay, no problem.
No. Let me finish. We have no other optional choice to come together on race issues. That is not a choice or an option. The gender thing is a choice or an option. You know that women can behave in a modernized or traditional fashion. The race thing is there's no option and choices here. I'm not going to have that kind of we get to choose the gender thing above. Now if there's a particular group of black women that you've come across that behave in this manner, then okay, fine, I can't argue with that. But in retrospect, the reality is you've just mentioned the girl that was stripped. it wouldn't even for a minute that would we have not protested like that regarding gender issues in that kind of way for 3 days solid. You tell me when we've done that as black women, a number of black women, a high number of black women. We haven't done that. Like, let's try and put some honesty on
There,
this.
as far ultimately, I'm not disputing about the commitment. I said already that you can argue was a coalition of people who basically saw that this is not right and they came together. But in terms of a community, it
But
doesn't really exist here. At
okay,
best, what you have is you have subsets. Remember, I think I'll say this before. I said it on a previous stream. What you have, the closest thing to a community you have right now in 2022, right, is what Benedict Anderson calls an imagined community. It's a community without borders. Yeah, no, because it doesn't. There's no pillars. There's no borders. There's no institution. All it literally is an outgrowth of solidarity. Okay, we've had some kind of common ground with racism, this, that, and the other. So that's what it comes down to. But it's not supposed to be a thing where someone goes around gatekeeping blackness, arbitrarily says to people, you're not black, black and a black, black and a black, black. That's not what it's supposed to be about. But too often nowadays, that's what it's become. You've got women. I've had women come up to me telling me, oh, I owe them marriage. This has started from my early 20s. I'm like, the hell?
well,
When did this come from? This is confusing. I don't know them from Adam. It'd be one thing if I grew up literally in the same kind of vicinity. All our parents grew up in the same area. Yeah, we had certain institutions, and it was pretty much a thing whereby it was an unspoken rule, and then boom, I pulled rank. That'll be one thing. But these are women I've never seen. I don't know them from Adam, and then they come and did that.
Right,
you understand?
right.
That's not on. That's not black community as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I respect you for that because you're honest, and I think there should be more men that are honest like that, so the women don't really get themselves in a position of where they sleep with men, they end up having children.
I weren't having sex with these women. These were women that I crossed paths with in uni. Yeah, I never had any. I had no. Please don't conflate what I'm saying. Yeah, I never said that I had sex with these women. These are women.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I did not know, and they were like, "Yeah, you owe us marriage," and trying to do pass the path with me.
Okay, I know that. I know you, so I know you're not that way inclined. But what I'm saying is, people should be honest about where they stand.
There's a false equivalency. I'm talking about
hold on, Diego.
Go up to strangers and say, "Why are you not getting married? You meant to need to start marrying us." That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about.
No, but hold on, Diego. They should expect marriage. You should not be laying down with women or men. I'm
not talking about laying down with women. Why are you putting words into my mouth? I said to you, yeah. Okay. No. But I'm not talking about other guys. I'm talking about a woman I do not know, yeah, finds out that I'm doing something and I'm being productive, now starts telling me that I owe them marriage. I don't know this woman, never seen her before, I have no involvement with her, and I have no wish to change that. She now starts telling me that I owe her marriage. From where? That's what I have a problem with. That there's a test.
Well, because you're in a high position,
that's what it comes down to.
That's how it goes for all of us.
These are probably
wakey.
That's a traditional set, isn't it, Diego? That's what happens in tradition, where men and women get paid off.
I agree. Arranged marriage, so I have an issue with that. That's the thing. I agree. That's why I said to you, if it had been a thing where our parents knew each other, yeah, let's just say we had some link to the homeland, part of a hometown association, there were some kind of institutions and literally a collective kind of value set, then I would be like, I still wouldn't agree with it, but I would probably give it a bit more.
You wouldn't go ahead. You wouldn't go along with that.
No. But I do not know.
You wouldn't have gone along with that either.
So I'm gonna have strangers come up to tell me that I owe them marriage, and then start to extrapolate that across all black men, and a black man and a black man.
As long as you're not saying, but as long as you're not whispering in their ear marriage, then you don't have any. There's no issues there. But if you're saying, oh yeah.
But it doesn't stop women talking shit about black men. That's my big issue. And there's always going to be some kind of instances, cleavages or conflict whilst this happens.
All right, let me speak. I'm saying that those that do whisper marriage into women's ear to get what they want, that's a different ballgame. But obviously for you, you're saying, okay, women all of a sudden, they see your position that you're in as a black man and they're saying, okay, well, I expect marriage from you due to the position that you're in. I understand where you're coming from in that respect. But you have to look at this in a macro way as to how other men that are black men that are behaving in a different way.
I'm not them and they're not me. This is why I'm saying that. This is where this strikes at the heart of what I'm saying.
You're being unfair with the discussion. Sorry, I didn't want African Empress not to
I have to be clear about that. There isn't a community. What you have, when it comes down to certain discussions on these kind of forums on platforms, right? I call it an invitation to treat. At this point in time, yeah, there's no kind of contractual obligations. It's literally someone saying the black community should be like this, the black community should be like that. Someone else responds, and if they can come to some kind of consensus, that's one thing, right? But if they can't, it's merely an invitation to treat. You cannot basically impose this idea where one person is like some kind of gatekeeper. You can't assume something.
I agree. I agree to a
It has
certain
to be
extent.
it has to be predetermined. Has to be
No,
predetermined. There has to be there has to be set values. Do you understand? There has to be something that sets up some kind of credo. If there's no credo, yeah, then it does not make any sense. You get my point? Uh-huh.
Well, what he's essentially saying is that black women shouldn't expect anything from him because he's reached a certain echelon of life, and that's similar to most black men. He has the similar
you're
kind
the
of thinking.
conspiracy theorist.
No, let her speak. Let her speak. I want to.
But that's essentially what he's saying. These women that were telling him that he should marry one of them, they were probably of the same hue as him, and this is what's upsetting him because he thinks he's surpassed them because he's reached a certain area of his career, and this is quite common amongst black men in our community. And I am using the word black men now, even though I didn't use it before.
But Fiona,
Listen, first and foremost,
Diego, one second. But Fiona, though, to Diego's point, if a random woman comes up to me and says, "You owe me marriage," and I don't know this woman, I'm sorry.
Well, why it matters if it was a woman that was exotic looking or a woman of from the dominant culture, you'd probably be quite.
No, I promise.
I'm sure you'd probably be quite impressed and quite chuffed. And his problem is that it wasn't one of those women. He would probably have taken it as a compliment if it was. Yeah.
Let me be clear
for me,
about
I'm just saying
something.
no. For me, no, not for me at all. But
let me be clear about something. First and foremost, if it really is remotely significant, I think it's entirely inconsequential. But I will indulge you, Fiona. The girls will actually fairer skinned than me, so we will go there. You understand? I'm a dark skinned man. These women were fairer than me. Okay, so for what it's worth,
they were black.
No. But they were black. They're all black. But let me make it very clear. Yeah. No. Let me be clear.
That's why you're insulted. That's why you're insulted, isn't it? That's the real reason why you're insulted.
Yeah, relax. Women with your mindset are the kind of reason why I wouldn't want to get married. You have to be very clear about that.
You can't say that.
No, I am, because at the end of the day, that's like the kind of rhetoric you spew is almost like lying with literally like you're lying with the enemy. You're in bed with the enemy.
No.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I
have to underscore that. I have to underscore that because I'm not some piece of property.
So hold on. If a woman,
I can only marry one woman, yeah. And if it makes sense, I'll do it. If it doesn't, I simply won't.
If a woman from a non-black community came up to you and said, "Oh, you should marry me," you'd be impressed with that.
No, I would not.
You'd probably laugh it off. You'd probably laugh it off.
To go and speak to Fiona. I would
probably laugh it off.
No, I definitely would not. Let me
stop
make
the cap.
If you're trying,
hold on. Sorry, Diego. Sorry. I have to go bring an African Empress. You've been waiting patiently.
Sorry.
Yeah, you guys have been going after for a while, so I try to let it ride. African Empress, welcome to the stream. To be fair to you, I don't know where do you want to pick up or go off of this. It's something you wanted to add to the conversation, by all means, but go ahead. If you can hear me.
Hi guys, sorry. Yeah, you caught me in the middle of a busy one. Yeah, I have no comment to give at this moment in time, but I shall be continuing to listen in and feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, perfect. No, that's fine, African Empress. As long as you're, if that's fine, you can lay low in the background until.
Can I pick up again on the independent woman thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
As it relates to, since we're talking about independent women, and I think Diego mentioned about the welfare system or the systems that were in place to help women and their children.
I spoke about popular culture. I didn't quite get to anything to do with welfare. I hadn't quite. We can go there. We finish speaking, but I just have to clarify. I merely spoke about the popular culture, the prevailing voice of the zeitgeist, the scrubs.
I thought you talked about the systems that were in place and that they would soon be removed and all of that.
I hadn't got to that point. But like I said,
okay,
it's your thing. I can go there. Go on.
I felt that you were leading up to that point. So I just wanted to.
I hadn't got there. No, I hadn't really got there because ultimately, at the end of the day, right, the choices that people make, right, is what leads on to. Put it like this: the adoption of the welfare state, or shall I say, adopting its provisions or embracing its provisions, rather, it did not happen in a vacuum. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So by extension, if the value system had been different at that time, then they might have chosen a different path, and they didn't. That's essentially what I'm saying. But yeah, continue.
No, I just wanted to make the point that there's all this talk about the welfare system, and maybe not by you, but by men in general in this space, particularly as it pertains to women within our community. So I just wanted to make the point that a lot of women don't actually claim for child support and things to that nature. And I think it's because of a certain fear. I think essentially they're scared for their lives if they do, because, this is, I think the idea is that there's this whole independent woman trope, which men in our community push as well. So it's this whole idea that, oh, you'll be okay, you can handle it all on your own. I've seen women do it before, and you go ahead and you make the decisions, manage the household and raise the children on your own. You'll be just fine. And I wanted to say that in terms of accessing systems and money from the system, it's almost thought of as a crime in the Black community to actually put men on child support. Many Black women don't put men on child support. And it's this whole thing of, well, I'll give it to you when I have it. If I have some spare coins, I'll throw it your way. There's not this whole thing of actually supporting children. So that's another thing that probably contributes to the independent woman trope, where people think, well, okay, women in our position think, well, okay, I have to now go out there and get a job and get some form of income to raise my children and be mother and father, essentially, because men do get really, really, really upset and angry, and it's almost a taboo when you actually put men on child support. So women are not wanting to deal with that whole pressure for their own personal safety. So what they're doing is just saying, okay, forget it, I'll handle it on my own, and I'll handle all the financial strains. But yeah, and as I said in another stream, there isn't an issue though when, as you say, and I agree with you, that Black men are the Congo dandies of the world. They like showing off, and they like all of the accoutrements of
I never said that.
wealth,
You're
things like that.
on the roll with putting voice.
So
I never said that. I said that we're in a culture, a hyper consumerist culture. I never made any reference directly to Black men and the choices that they used to spend their money on. I never said
okay, well,
that.
they're quite flashy in their appearance.
Diego, aren't you like Nigerian, Diego? Aren't you like Nigerian? Aren't they meant to be like hyper consumerist, show offy? So
well, I would say this
Tell
much,
the
right?
truth.
Very,
and
very
shame the
proud.
devil.
No.
Tell the truth.
I will say this much. I will say this much, okay?
Tell the
I can't
truth.
talk for I can't talk all for all. This is where the issue. I think
You
that
say you do it. Now you don't want to talk for all. Now you don't want to talk for all.
no.
Come on, bro.
I'm not talking. I've not been talking for all. I've been consistent in that regard. What I'm saying to you is that are there men that I honestly can't. Me personally, I'm not flashy. I prefer quality over quantity. I'm not flashy. If I wear anything that's designer, you will never know, because that's just the way I do things. But I see. Listen, I don't. Are there
Nigerians
men
loud, bro? Nigerians are loud. They like the flashy things, bro. Come on now.
I don't know. I didn't grow up with Nigerians like that. This is what I'm trying to tell you. I only came into contact with them in my later years. Then the ones that I came across, the ones that I came across, of a certain kind of like mindset. So I went to gentlemen's clubs, specific networks. That's where I got to. That's in the last few years. That's the bulk of Nigerian men that I've spent with, and they have a different mindset. They're more of that. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be familiar with this, but the kind of old money, Lagos Island, generational wealth types. The ones that went to like they went to like Ampleforth, and they went to certain places like that.
Slavery, but
so they do like designers. I'm not going to lie, they do like designers. I'm going to like my suits, for example, are not cheap. I'm not going to tell you that I don't. You understand? There's certain kind of things that you make, but in terms of like flashy, you would not know.
Are incredibly branded. They run for
like,
this.
I'm saying to you that they may be flashy on TV. Go for it. Put it like this, I can't say that they're not, but to me, it's like I don't know. It's relative because I have not seen it.
No, you can't say that. You're being
the closest thing I've seen is that like guys hiring, you know, some of these Afrobeats clubs from like, you know, a few years back where you had
Oh,
guys that would hire out
please.
Lamborghinis, right?
No,
Lamborghinis
they're not
and
the
all the
only
kind
ones,
of fast
Diego.
cars, and
Don't,
they'll be
no, 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 no,
doing
no.
that's
Don't make
what I'm aware of.
no,
Oh,
no, no, no.
and champagne. If we're
No,
talking about
you're
so
such a
I don't
liar.
know,
Bro,
You know,
champagne, yeah? Straight
bro.
up.
Diego,
you
come
are
on,
such
man.
a
We can't
liar.
have that.
You know,
Listen,
high
listen.
purchases.
And this is why I'm going to say this.
Yes.
This is why a lot of British Nigerian men, this is one of the reasons why they don't want to go back to their homeland to get a woman, because they're too traditional, which means hypergamous, and they can't handle it. I've realized this. They can't handle the women.
Oh, the women or the men? Sorry, I'm confused. Wait, the women or the men?
The men won't go back to like Nigeria to get a woman because they're too hypergamous. They can't handle the fact that a lot of them are, because you know what it is. Like, they can't.
The ones
they
here,
like a modern woman. They love a modern woman. These British Africans, they do. They can't handle.
Guy, listen, Nigerian women are very modern as well. You know, like there's not a huge difference like between the women in this country, like Nigerian British girls here.
But UK women
here
aren't
we
as
go.
sharp,
Here we
are they? They're not as sharp, bro. They aren't as
look
sharp.
more alike, act alike, think alike. There's not a huge difference between the two. The only one is that obviously you have to apply for visa for one. The other one is obviously has like the pre-prepared papers. You understand? So, but they're kind of like twins. Then they're like conveyor belt. There's globalization. Yeah, has harmonized these behavioral traits. You understand? There's not a huge difference. Put it like this: they're either all as attractive as each other, or there's no difference.
But Diego, be honest. People in your bracket, my bracket, right? You're saying that they don't peacock and put the brands in front of everything else. Is that what you're trying to say? Nigerians?
So okay, I'll concede this much. Yeah, I'll concede this much. I'll concede this much. This country, there may be okay in Nigeria, yeah, in the place because I've run business there, I've done things there, yeah, and I've seen things on my very two eyes. They are pathologically hyper consumerist. I do not deny that. Like the reason why we do not have, Nigeria doesn't have the level of progress that it does, because since 1960, you add all the money that we've hemorrhaged, you adjust for inflation, we've caned over $1.437 trillion. We have nothing to show for it. So yes, that there, other than some government misuse, right? That there is consistent with pathological materialism. I'm not denying that.
Diego, even in the United States, Nigerian men are picking up traction over there for their flashiness. Even in the United States, in areas like Atlanta,
maybe you might know more than I do. I'm still learning about this diasporic Nigerian extravagance. I've seen some instances. I'm not going to deny it, but on a broader scale, I can't say. I don't know. Maybe you know, Fiona and Tasha, you don't like, you don't have more...
Say my name like that.
What? What do I do?
But anyway, I mean, I think to finish off my point, what I was trying to say was that essentially, going back to my Congo dandy point, essentially men in general in our community, we have to face the fact that we're living in a culture where they'd rather go into Nike Town and spend £300 on a pair of trainers than feed their children. And they're coming out skinning and grinning. And I've said this before on this platform. That is the culture that we're living in. And it's a very sort of self-centered way of survival. But, in all honesty, child support and contributing to children is not on the top priority of their list, and that's actually the honesty and the truth that we're going to have to accept. So I don't know why men are going in these spaces and pretending that women, particularly in this community, are rinsing the life in terms of child support, because to be quite frankly, if you put one of them on child support, your life and your way of life is at risk.
Okay, Fiona, listen. When it comes down to what you're talking about, when it comes down to is it what's the word I'm looking for here? You just said it now. What's it? Child support, that's it. There's not like this country, the whole situation here is not comparable to the US. You understand? Completely different circumstances. First and foremost, the child support here, I don't really think is that unreasonable, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's a lot more kinder than what I've seen in the US. That's the first thing. The second thing, how many truly are on child support, and who the parents, or rather the mothers, are trying to put these
women aren't putting them on child support. The women aren't putting them on child. That's the whole point.
Where's the arrears? Have you got the arrears for black families, yeah, or black mothers that have tried to place their baby fathers, right, on child support, if you've got the arrears, yeah, I will stand down. I'll be like, yeah, I'll defer to what you're saying. But unless you've got the figures that outline the specific arrears, with respect, what you're saying is literally just conjecture. It has no basis in fact or reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? Keep in mind as well, I said this already, when we're talking about the growth of the so-called black population, 0.4% growth. We're looking at like a population that's not replacing itself. So the idea that this whole talk of child support is even statistically significant, I think you can knock that one out of the park. I would caution on really taking that seriously. Okay. Ultimately, like I said, if you honestly believe that some men are not necessarily doing their best, and as much as you would say that men need to step up, you also kind of got to speak in love to the women and encourage them to make better choices. It takes two to tango, right? So
Well, the
that's
single
one thing to keep in mind.
White Matters has the stats that the single motherhood rate's going down, so they probably are taking, or it could be that you're simply leaving the community, so therefore we're not having to deal with you, so the rates are going down that way. Either or, depends how you
I'm gonna lie, Fiona. Yeah, your commitment to conspiracy
Good work,
theories is
Fiona.
remarkable. I have to give you your credit. You are unrivaled.
You may have a point there. You may have a point there.
No. Look, at the end of the day, the reason why people are not having children as much is literally just the environment we're living in. It's more expensive. There's a lot more to do socially. A lot more people travel than they did previously. So ultimately, I think it's a stretch. But like I said, you love a good conspiracy theory, so I got to give credit where it's due.
But the child support issues, you're a man that likes to go by stats. The problem with that is this, right? A lot of women, as she said, do not go down the child support route. I have had to support many people that have had these issues with men where they're not being supported in their family home. We can't pretend that doesn't exist. It may not have the high numbers. We wouldn't expect it to have the high numbers as, Black America. We're not, we don't have the same percentage of people. But
so which makes it statistically insignificant. I put it like this, right? I'm cautious. I'm always
then you don't really care.
I'm always cautious, yeah. I'm always cautious
over the actual issue.
Listen, I'm always cautious in trying to draw any statistical should I say, let me put it like this. You have your stats, but some stats are more meaningful than others. Okay. So when it comes down to any stats to do with even when it comes down to single parent households, marital rate in this country, I would say that it's largely pointless to try to say, okay, there's just one explanation for why things are the way they are. Do you understand? But certain people are cool with that narrative, and it doesn't really achieve much. I mean, it exercises the gums. And
we know the reality is we know why
it doesn't really achieve anything.
We know why a single parent, because the abortion rate's gone up. This is a fact. This is a well-known fact.
I looked at the last stats for abortions. Awful. Yeah. I looked at the last stats for abortions. Black women comprise 16% of all abortions. That's the last stats that I looked at.
Hold on, right? That's a US stat though, isn't it? That's
no, UK.
You sure? I don't think. Are you sure?
Yeah. It was sorry, it was 16,000. Sorry, it's 8%.
Oh, I was going to say
16,000. Sorry, my bad. 8%, 16,000. Apologies. So that's what I saw, and I'm like, yeah.
When was that last done by though? When was that?
The last stats I think it was a couple of years back or so. I can get you the report. I've got it. I think on one of my.
It's only a few years that the numbers have gone down, so we would need to see the most recent.
That's in a couple of years, but we can look.
There's been a lot of articles.
I've looked at the stats that the government compiled, and unless you're talking about the old hanger method, I've looked at the stats from the government, and yeah,
no, abortion rate is being seen as contraception, right? And it's
I'm not disputing that. It is belated contraception, yeah. For many women nowadays, it definitely is.
Black women are putting themselves in these positions, and morals and standards and values, traditional values, should be led by
black women are not babies. Do you understand? They're not babies.
Can I make a point?
No. Hold on.
They're not babies.
Hold on, but they're not babies, absolutely, 100%. But there are men and women involved in these kind of unity kind of
emphasis on women. Emphasis on women.
Okay, I said
Tash,
women,
can I just make a point?
Girls and men.
The first thing that black men I found will voluntarily offer to pay for is an abortion. That's number one. Number two.
Sorry, Fiona, are you talking about here or are you talking about in the US? Because abortions are free here.
Number two, a lot of these, well, particularly when I was younger and I saw what was going on in people at earlier age and things like that, is that I don't know if it still exists, but so that these things do not show up on your public records or your obstetrics report, you could actually go to somewhere like Buckhurst Hill and get that done on a private, so where this
How
will not be
often will that
recorded.
happen?
Which will not be recorded. Well, for certain, for other races of
how
women who can
often does that happen?
hold on. For other races of
Fiona,
women
how
who can hold on. For other races of women who cannot afford it, that is not an option. But for certain women who can afford that option, you can actually go and get these things done privately, where it's not recorded on your obstetrics report. So we cannot really say as a definite that we're perpetuating this thing as much as more than anyone else, because other people are just better at covering it up.
I never said, look, when you look at the figures, like the black women that are having abortions is exceedingly small compared to everybody else. So it's not like it's way over. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's good. I don't support it.
We
I
would
don't
need
do
the
it. I'm not
recent
about
numbers
that
for
life.
that. We would need
Sorry?
the recent numbers for that, though, wouldn't we? Really?
That's fine. That's fine. I'll get them for you. I don't want to lose flow right now, but I'm happy to get them and I'll disseminate it. I have no problem at all. So yeah, so just a point to what Fiona said.
Don't call her name like that.
What did I do? Listen, look, my voice sometimes has Cockney inflections. It is what it is. Back to what I was saying, right?
Okay.
Buckhurst or wherever he said like that is that even worth mentioning? Most of these abortions are free and they're on the NHS. In fact, abortions period are free and on the NHS. So this idea that the only thing that black men are willing to do is give black women abortion.
But if you paid for it privately, it wouldn't show up on the records, would it? So.
Oh God, how many women do you honestly think, yeah, actually basically going to private hospitals, right, and actually doing this?
Quite common, actually.
Okay, if you say so, that you're just pulling that from left field. But like I said, if it makes you sleep better at night, along with the other spurious contributions you made, then so be it.
Well, they have the finances to do so. So.
Interesting, very, very interesting.
We have to be balanced in this
conjecture.
conversation. I think it's quite disappointing that we go with the gender kind of,
gender what?
Yeah,
but we can look at
attacks. I think it's
I mean, you're familiar with this area, Tash, but you can even look at social services, which children are ending up in the care, and we can easily see that these are mostly kind of biracial children. So they're not they're not made by black women, essentially.
Yeah,
black women. Wait, what? Black women don't make biracial children. Are you sure about that?
I'm talking about the ones that are in the care system.
No. But even so, you telling me that it's majority? You're telling me that it's all black
majority
men?
No, the majority.
Majority, yes.
I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure. Let's not conflate this with marital rates. Yeah. Let's not conflate this with marital states. Yeah. Because at the end of the day,
there's a lot of common law wives and people that are separated.
This is my point. I'm saying the same thing as you.
White women that are not put down on stats, and you know that. So I don't know why we're going.
No. But I'm telling you, like, there's definitely.
They're not put on the.
You can't tell me anecdotally that there aren't more black women pushing biracial children. Okay, they're pushing them.
We're never going to get stats to prove that. But
what I'm saying, but this is the point. You're already making the case that I can't go solely on stats. Yeah.
Well, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go down the marriage route.
I'm not talking about marriage.
We know that black women marry white men because white men marry women, right?
I'm not talking about marital. I'm not talking about marital rates here. The black marital rate in the UK period is not particularly high. Yeah, it's quite low. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about biracial children born outside of wedlock. Yeah, nah, mate, nah. Boy, Tash, nah.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
I'm not having it.
I would agree.
I'm not having it. Not having it.
I've seen a big push for black females.
This is conjecture, and let me be conjecture.
Why can't we hear from a new system?
Absolute conjecture.
No, I've seen a big push for black females to push divestment. So I have seen.
Why are you having a conversation about black men? Then you're in conflict. It's like this is like some kind of literally like you understand. Pick a struggle. pick a side. There's no point in talking about black men, yeah.
Oh,
By
Diego, stop. You're
by
waving the
virtue
flag
of
now.
you
This is
pushing the
you. You're waving the
divestment
flag.
movement, yeah.
I'd like to hear from
issue,
African
any
I'd
gripe
like to
Empress.
hear
that
from
you have,
African Press.
any gripe that you have about black men is redundant. Let you all
Yeah.
divest and be happy.
Can we hear
Not
from African
necessarily.
Empress, please? Thank you.
Yes, necessarily, Flyna.
Not necessarily. I do find there's again a big push for divestment
No.
from.
Do divestment. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. From there's a big push from black females and white males more than there are from anyone else. I always think we leave somebody off the table when we're having all these discussions because history, as far back as written, portrays a brown, yellow, and white man, or brown, red, and white man. So I think we do leave some people off the table when discussing these issues. But there is a big push for divestment at the moment, predominantly by females. I've noticed it. That's what piqued my hearing. I heard that comment. I can't remember who said it, but I noticed that also. Hello.
Yeah, I think White Matters is having some technical difficulties, but I think that push, African Empress, is only recent, and in recent years.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that's been commonly pushed since the 90s, like it has been
Right.
for black men. To be fair with you, their divestment, if you want to call it that, has been going on for several decades now, and it shows in the
way
stats.
more.
So. Although I agree, there is more of a movement towards that, because at the end of the day, African Empress, they are our leaders, so we're following the leader at this stage. If what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I've got no problem with people promoting that if it means that it's going to mean that black women are in more stable relationships.
Fiona, most black men, I can assure you, do not care if ultimately black women want to get with white men. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we can tell them whatever opinions we have. Me personally, do what you want to do.
I'm not saying that you care. I'm not saying. I'm just talking to African Empress.
All the aspiring divestors, live your best lives. Ultimately, that's what I would say. When it comes down to this concept of,
we're not doing it to harm it. I don't say that.
I'm not being facetious. I'm not being facetious. I'm literally just saying, if it's the sum of your convictions, you and any other woman this applies to, you got to pick your best choice. It's not for me or any other guy to tell you don't do that. Now, what I will say is this: when it comes down to this whole idea of like the swirling and divesting and men started and all that, right? Look, I'm not going to deny that you saw more black men, right, doing that, but there is context to it. First and foremost, we know that it was many of the older Caribbean males, and no one should really. I'll caution about condemning them simply because many of them came to between the 40s and the 60s. They came here in order to satisfy, key labor positions, right? Some of the men that came here were able to come with their wives, or they were able to send for their wives. Several men came here, did not have a wife when they came. And then when they would rely on the local community or the communities that they could access to help them, it wasn't always accessible. Case in point, you'd have certain people that, say, for example, come from Grenada, okay? Then they'll be put up in Southampton, and then they would end up going to London. Their base really should be in Southampton, but based on circumstances, it's not feasible for them. So ultimately, in the course of just living their day-to-day life, they come across a white woman, and booyah, what happens. Do you understand? So that's really the inception of it. Do you understand? Similar, if you want to go back to the black population before that, the one that got deported to Sierra Leone, it's a kind of similar thing where there were just loads of black men and few black women. So this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not defending it. It's literally context. Now, I don't deny that once there was some type of what I'll call assimilation, or the second generation Windrush kids and so on and so forth. Yes, the number of black men from that generation dating and even marrying white women increased. I don't deny it, right? You can look at that as a function of being in a predominantly white population. I know we like to pattern our behavior and our choices on Black America, but I would caution against doing that because we're not Black America. I would even go one further and say that the black population in the UK, if they'd not been on the receiving end of a hostile environment incubated by the Labour government in 1947, okay, then I believe the assimilation would have happened even earlier. If the deal had been struck before they changed the Commonwealth, they went from the Colonial Office to the Commonwealth Act in 1968, right, where all those countries that were seen as part of British Empire, like the Caribbean islands, became their own independent states, if you will. Prior to that point, if they had said, okay, we're going to assimilate and absorb all these black people that have come, but we need to limit the flow hereafter, right? Black people would have been like, cool, you're being friendly with us, no problem, we'll marry your kids and so on and so forth. So I'll tell you now, even though the population numbers have basically peaked and they're now on a steady decline, that would have happened already. It was inevitable. Do you understand? That's always how it's going to be, unless you have a situation whereby you have people that have quite almost what I say segregated of sorts. I'll be very cautious in comparing the Jewish population, say for example, to the black population, where they have their own institutions, they have more of like an organized kind of unit. Because the black so-called population encompasses people from different countries, different ethnic groups. There are people that are Nigerian that wouldn't fuck with me because their parents said, don't hang around with so-and-so. Not because of the quality of my character, but because of that. That's a microcosm compared to all of the black dynamics, the intra-black dynamics. So this is why I'll say, and I could go on, but I'll
Sorry. What were you holding Labour responsible for exactly on that? Sorry.
Okay, when the Labour government, were the ones, Labour were the ones that were asked to form the government, the post-World War II government, okay? Prior to that, yes, it had been a conservative government. When was it at, where is it called now? Tilbury Docks. When you had the Windrush dock there, right? There was a number of Labour politicians that were worried that this influx of black people and what it may happen in terms of the social cohesion. I've written a book about this. The social cohesion.
Rubbish. Well, you better look into that. That's total rubbish.
No, I'm telling you that the Labour government, the Labour government incubated a hostile environment to limit the flow of black people. I'm not going to have that. This is verifiable fact.
No.
Well, it's verifiable facts. I'm sorry, it's verifiable facts.
Can we let Tash speak?
They were the ones that incubated that.
Hold on.
Okay.
No. Hold
on. No. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Say that
it was the
No.
I'm telling you.
It's not going to happen.
I'm telling you. Clemently.
It's not going to happen.
Under Clemently.
The
Labour administration.
Hold on. The Tories.
You can look it up.
No,
I've written about it in my book.
Diego, come on. Can we let Tash speak, please?
I'm saying that I'm from that. You're not going to say to me that the Tories gave us put us in a position.
This is not an endorsement of the Tories. I'm not endorsing the Tories. I'm literally. This is subsumed. No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't vote for Tories. So this is not.
Let me finish. The Labour Party was the one that gave us the opportunity to have some sort of political power, some sort of voice. Right, straight in when we came here. So I'm really not going to entertain that fact.
I know about you're talking about the 1987 election. You're talking about the election of Bernie Grant. You're talking about the election of Diane Abbott. I am not disputing that, but that was in 1987. That was a whole 40 years later. That was a whole 40 years later. I'm not backing, but I'm telling you right now, the Labour government, the Labour government that incubated this hostile environment in 1947. It was not personal to black people. It was about business. Let me be very clear about that. So when they chose it, this was a concern about resources. Keep in mind, consider the historical context. We were coming out of the Second World War. The UK was, and when it came down to it, you had a situation where you had rations. No. White people are already having rations. You understand what I'm trying to say? It was in the context. It was in the context.
Was so concerned about the black man coming through and taking his jobs. That's
I'm telling you what they said. I'm just the messenger here. The Labour government were the ones that established the hostile environment.
Hold on.
You can't predicate what happened in 1987 based on what happened in 1947.
You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that because the history of the West Indies, the Caribbean people, is a very important one that I hold dear. I'm not going to have you say
that's particularly the reason why. Tash, you should read more into this.
Don't even try.
You're going to apologize to me. You're going to apologize to me when you basically find out. When you find out, no, you will, and I'll hold you to it. Don't worry, Tash. I got you. I'll hold you to it. No. Good. There's several books that go into it. I've got a ton of books. I can even put my camera on and show you the books. Okay.
Well read. Okay, I'm saying to you, you're not going to do that because this whole white working class had an issue with all the immigrant groups. Is total. Sorry, I can't swear.
I know what I'm talking about here. Yeah, the whole limit of black people coming in. Yeah, fundamentally at the political level was not necessarily solely
this
about.
is not for
I
this
hate
stream
them
anyway.
black
I'm not
people.
even trying to.
It was
I don't
about
wanna,
business.
okay.
Do you understand?
I'll talk
They
to you about
wanted
this
to
later.
manage the
No, it's
resources.
fine.
I'm not
It's
telling you that
okay.
the decision was the
It's
best
okay.
decision.
It's all good
I'm
anyway.
not telling
but
you.
yeah, all right. It's
Don't
all
worry.
good anyway.
I'll
I have
show
to
you.
respect those that came
I'm
before
telling you
me,
what
and
happened.
I'm not
The
going to
Labour
entertain that.
government under Clem Attlee, you can look it up. The Labour government, 1947, yeah, they now held a meeting to ask themselves, how do we limit the flow of Caribbean people coming in?
Okay, all
There's
right.
a reason why. I'll tell you a reason why it was. I'll give you the.
Yeah, who wrote that? Who wrote that book? Who
Lithuania.
wrote that book?
Lithuania.
Who gave that information?
Lithuania.
I'm the one that wrote that then to you.
Hang on. I've got several books that go into detail about it. Yeah, I've got a book by Peter Fryer.
The audacity.
Right? I've got another book by David Olushoga.
Well,
I've got another book. They all go into detail. I've got nothing to basically.
It's all good. I'm not gonna take over this stream.
Do you understand?
Right? But
no, it's not. Look, listen. Look it up.
Do you know what? You're reading. You're on the wrong team, my brother.
This is not a case of being on any team.
You're definitely.
I'm not a conservative. I don't care for no conservative. I'm politically agnostic. Don't get it twisted.
We need to allow history to be what it is.
But you know what I'm gonna do? Yeah, I got you. Don't worry. I'm gonna send you some resources now, and just for what it's worth, I never fabricated. Don't worry. I've got you.
Send it right now. And the thing is, you have to remember these. It's all good anyway, because if you don't realize that some of these authors are biased and they're going to be putting a certain narrative your way, that's fine. If you want to eat up what people are saying, that's up to you. Do your thing. Anyway, sorry, White Matters. I didn't want it. I'm not trying to do this whole political thing on here. And
well, fun enough, I've got no idea what the conversation starts. My computer was, I don't know what it was doing. So yeah. I'm kind of, to be honest with you, I'm gonna shut the stream down now. So
okay.
We've been going for a while, isn't it? And it's quite late. It's not like it's my normal early stream.
Oh my gosh, it's nearly 12:30.
So no, it's fine. But no, I appreciate each and every one of you for being on the stream. I appreciate it. So thank you to everyone in the chat. Please make sure you like the stream, share the stream, subscribe if you're new. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna call it a night. It's been a long one.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
People got work in the morning, so I don't want to.
I didn't even know the time. Fiona, African Empress, big up to yourself. Diego, big up.
It's all
big
good.
up.
Bye, everyone.
Big up, people. Bless up. Thank you.
All right, cheers, everyone. Take care.
Take care. I'll catch you on the next.
Cash. See you later.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.